You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1364 1364 Chapter 318 Undercurrent, Plot, Monthly 1. Human Realm, Undercurrent Surging. Zhou Polong, Multiple Divine Literature Department, Divine Literature as One. These words quickly spread among the higher-ups. The greatest hope of becoming an unrivaled civilized master, Yi Batian was second, perhaps even more perfect than Yi Batian back then. If Yi Batian failed, Zhou Polong might succeed. As for whether it was true or not, even if Zhou Polong himself denied it, it would not be able to stop everyone's guesses. Denying it might just be for the sake of achieving the Tao in a safer manner. Yi Batian was too high-profile back then. Otherwise, the 10,000 races might not have thought that he had any hope of becoming a civilization master. It was because Yi Batian was too monstrous, too high-profile, and too overbearing that led to the calamity 50 years ago. Now, Zhou Polong seemed to be much more low-profile than Yi Batian. In the wilderness, in an underground palace, shadows were projected one after another. This was a stronghold that only the cult master of the 10,000 races knew about. Last time, everyone was discussing how to kill Su Yu. Of course, after that time, there were a few cult masters missing. Today, they were not talking about Su Yu, nor were they talking about Hong Tan, who was stirring up trouble in the Great Xia Manor. Compared to these possible threats, Zhou Polong was definitely a threat. No matter how Su Yu, Hong Tan, and the others jumped around, they couldn't become invincible in a day. As for Zhou Polong, there was this possibility. Everyone, we're in big trouble. At this moment, a sect master sighed, I suspect that a big battle will break out soon. It's at the human realm. In order to prevent Zhou Polong from attaining Tao in the human realm, although it is not clear if he has the ability to activate the suppressive power of the human realm, if Zhou Polong sensed danger, he might choose to attain Tao in the human realm. If he attained Tao in the human realm, I'm afraid that in the near future, there will be invasions from the 10,000 clans. Even if he is not invasions, some 9th-level Sun-Moon cultivators will have to sneak into the human realm to assassinate Zhou Polong. An old woman continued, whether they sneak in or not, that's their problem. What I'm worried about is that the 10,000 races will be courting death if they ask us to assassinate Zhou Polong. The Heavenly Yi Divine Sect isn't weak, right? On that day, many 8th or 9th level Sun-Moon experts from the Heavenly Yi Divine Sect came. In the end, they were all killed by Xia Longwu on the spot. Assassinating such experts was really too dangerous. Xia Longwu's previous performance was not considered particularly powerful. In the end, 5 or 6 experts at the 9th level of the Sun-Moon went to assassinate him, but not a single one returned. All of them were dead. What they were afraid of was that the 10,000 races would also let them take action. If they wanted to assassinate Zhou Polong, they would really be throwing away their lives. Killing Su Yu, killing Chen Yong, and killing the others was because the others' strength was low. If there was hope to kill them, then there was still a chance of success. If the price was high enough, they were willing to do it. However, the chance of killing Zhou Polong was not high. Zhou Polong is not the only one in the Great Zhou Manor. Although the Great Zhou King is not here, the manor head of the Great Zhou Manor, Zhou Patian, is not weak either. He has been at the 9th level of the Sun-Moon for many years. Don't forget him. Even 2 9th-level Sun-Moon cultivators might be close to the invincible realm. Also, if we kill Zhou Polong, should we kill Zhou Patian? Zhou Patian might be in the same situation. 2 experts at the peak of the 9th level of the Sun-Moon realm. If we don't use our invincibility, who can kill them? Unless we send out dozens of Sun-Moon realm experts, there's still hope. The sect masters spoke one after another. They were worried that the 10,000 races would force them to make a move. As for how the 10,000 races would force them to make a move, Over the years, they had worked for the 10,000 races. Who wasn't guilty of heinous crimes? The 10,000 races had also grasped their true identities, including the location of their headquarters. Once it was revealed, they would be finished. At that time, the human realm would not be able to stay, and the heavenly battlefield would not dare to go. If the 10,000 races wanted to cause trouble for them, they could only wait for death. At this point, these people could only walk one path to the end. Very soon. Another person said, these days, many of the sun and moon realm experts from the various sects have died. The human realm is much more dangerous than in previous years. The Blood Fire sect has changed 3 sect masters in a row. On the human realm side, many of the sun and moon realm experts are currently surrounding the 6 Wings Divine sect. Very soon, chaos might erupt again. Everyone, it's time for the 10,000 races to join forces, including the 2 sect masters of the 6 Wings Divine sect. Someone suggested. Only by joining hands would they be able to withstand the risk. In the past, the myriad clan sect had been scattered, with each sect doing their own thing. But now, they really felt that they couldn't do it anymore. It was too dangerous. How many sun and moon sect masters had died in the past year? If this continued, they would be scattered and killed. If the 2 sun and moon sect masters of the 6 Wings Divine sect were killed again, it would be very troublesome. Also, how can we reject the pressure from the myriad races if it's a single sect? We don't have the capital. We can only work together and let the myriad races know that we are also a powerful force. That is to negotiate and negotiate, not to force us to die. As they spoke, someone said with a faint smile, isn't that simple? If we join our incipient demon sacred sect, we will definitely be able to get rid of everything. Blue sky. Someone said coldly, blue sky, we're talking about cooperation, not about taking in. Blue sky chuckled and said, what's the difference? They're all dogs. Is it different for whom? Wherever it's safer to eat their fill, they'll be dogs. Everyone, what do you all think? Don't blame me for being realistic. That's the truth. Don't tell me we have to talk about ethics with everyone. No one said a word. The words were a little harsh, but it was the truth. However, soon, someone said coldly, many people say that you and the 10,000 heavenly saints are actually in cahoots. They are secretly plotting to unify the religion of 10,000 races. The invincible human realm can't wait for us to perform a coronation ceremony for you and capture us all in one go. Blue sky, do you think that everyone will be able to rest assured of you? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1365. 1365 Chapter 318 Undercurrent, Plotting, Asking for a monthly 2. Blue Sky chuckled and said, that was intentionally to confuse the public. You all believe this too. No wonder you can only be dogs. Forget it, if you all like to cooperate, then cooperate. If you don't like to cooperate, then forget it. No one paid attention to him. Very soon, someone looked at the primitive religious leader who had not spoken much. Someone said in a low voice, primitive religious leader, what do you think of the matter of cooperation? Ha! The primitive religious leader snorted, cooperation. Everyone, who can be trusted? Cooperation, who is in charge? Cooperation, what do I ask you to do? Are you willing? It's all empty talk. The human realm is talking about cooperation. The 36 prefectures have been talking about it for more than 100 years, but there has been no result. Cooperation is the most unreliable. Everyone was speechless. After a while, someone said, even if we can't fully cooperate, we have to coordinate with each other. We can't let anyone else die. We are indeed not one, but we all have a common name, traitor. Wherever a traitor is, he is not welcomed. If we don't work together, we won't save ourselves. Now that the Zhou Polong incident has happened, very soon, there should be experts from the 10,000 clans entering the human realm. Everyone, are we going to be ordered by those people? If we ask you to kill Zhou Polong and you don't go, what will be the consequences? Earth Fire Sect Master, just say it. Do you have any ideas? Soon, the Earth Fire Sect Master said, even if we can't merge into one, at least we can coordinate with each other when it's difficult. For example, this time, the two sect masters of the Six Wings Divine Sect are being surrounded and killed, so we have to go and save them. Of course, everything is within our capabilities. Then who will make the decisions? Who will give the orders and who will coordinate the deployment? Someone asked again, and this time, many people fell silent again. Talking about cooperation was easy, but doing it was too difficult. Lan Tian smiled faintly and said, in that case, you don't have to rely on me anymore. How about I make the decisions? The losses of the incipient demon sacred sect these years were very small. It was all because I was careful in everything. Everyone wouldn't want those fellows from the Blood Fire sect to give orders, right? Those fellows will lose 3 cult masters a year. If you want, that's not a problem. Everyone was speechless. Nonsense. 3 sect masters of the Blood Fire religion had died in a row. This time, their new sect master hadn't taken office yet. They still didn't know who it was, so they didn't have their people around either. It was obviously impossible to let the Blood Fire religion make the decision. Unless everyone wanted to die. However, what Lan Tian said was also right. If they worked together and you didn't have a person to make the decision, then how could it be possible? Someone said, why don't we use the academy system, the elder system? In the academy system, the head of the academy can have the power of veto, but at the critical moment, we can use the elder voting system to decide. That's possible. The various academies have used this system for many years. Under normal circumstances, they can successfully complete major and minor matters. Indeed, the various sects cannot be scattered anymore. If that's the case, they will be defeated one by one sooner or later. Everyone spoke one after another. At this moment, there were more than 10 cult master level experts in this place. They were all at the Sun-Moon realm. This was also the human realm. Currently, all the Sun and Moon realm experts that could appear in the Myriad Clans sect were at the human realm. The remaining ones were either chased by the Six Wings Divine Sect, or went to the celestial battlefield, or some simply remained in closed-door cultivation. In this 1 year, 8 Sun-Moon cult masters had died. The remaining ones were not considered cult masters. In reality, excluding the Blood Fire demon race, only 7 Sun-Moon cult masters at the human realm had died. After discussing for a while, someone said, in terms of strength, the primordial sect master is the strongest. He's at the 9th level of the Sun-Moon realm. It's impossible to be the person in charge without strength. In terms of strength, he has to be at least at the highest level of the Sun-Moon realm. Everyone, does anyone have any opinions on this? Some of the people who were at the lowest level of the Sun-Moon realm did not say anything. There were definitely some opinions. However, they were all Sun-Moon experts. They understood that without strength, what you said was nonsense. Did you expect the experts to listen to your words and act? Lan Tian, your strength is a mystery. What exactly is your strength? Lan Tian chuckled and said, my strength is not weak. I'm at the 8th stage of the Sun and Moon realm. However, I feel that the primitive might not be my match, right? 8th stage of the Sun and Moon realm. Some people could not believe it. Lan Tian had only betrayed the academy for 20 years. How was it possible? Everyone had previously guessed that this fellow might have the strength of the 4th or 5th stage of the Sun and Moon realm. He was actually at the 8th stage of the Sun and Moon realm. Lan Tian, are you serious? Lan Tian smiled again. What's so strange about it? I'm a genius. What do you all know? Without this strength, I can hide everywhere. Even those unrivaled experts would not be able to discover me. When the sun and moon converge, one of the apertures will become stronger. Then it's over. I did not use a little bit of the sun and moon mystic yellow liquid. After 20 years, is it really inconceivable to be at the 8th level of the sun and moon realm? Nonsense. Of course it was inconceivable. Earth Fire, you're at the 7th level of the sun moon, right? That's right. Herculean God Lord, what about you? 7th level of the sun moon. Someone replied gloomily. There were only 4 experts with high levels of the sun moon. The sect leaders of the Herculean God sect, Primitive God sect, Incipient Demon God sect, and Earth Fire Demon sect were all experts with high levels of the sun moon. The others were all middle-level and low-level experts. This meant that the person in charge had to be chosen from these 4 people. The primitive sect master said indifferently, there's no need to choose. Even if you choose, it won't be of much use. If you really want to cooperate, the voting system will have 1 vote for low levels of sun and moon, 2 votes in the middle period, and 3 votes in the later period. Once these words were said, the others thought for a while and nodded. This could be considered cooperation. It was fine if it was a little rough. Everyone's goal was to find peace of mind. Lon Tian sneered and said, Primitive, you're the strongest. Why don't you just recruit everyone? Why are you pretending to be a saint? The primitive religious master said indifferently, no matter how many trash there are, they're still trash. At my level, the goal is to prove the Tao, not to seize power. Lon Tian, you're too stupid. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1366. 1366 Chapter 318 Undercurrent, Scheming, Asking for a Monthly 3. The moment these words were said, the others felt a little indignant. They turned their heads and thought that the 9th level Sun Moon sect did not really care about these things. The primordial sect leader's current goal was probably to attain the Tao. The primordial sect leader quickly said, I am the strongest and have no other requirements. I can agree to any proposal that is not excessive. If it is too excessive, there is a possibility of losing one's life. Then there is no need to mention it. Of course. We won't do anything that's life-threatening. As they spoke, soon someone said, then now, the first thing to do is to rescue the 2 people from the 6-winged divine sect. What do you think? 2 more suns and moons, and 2 less suns and moons. The gap isn't small. Those 2 guys aren't weak either. The 8 great clans are chasing after them. In addition, the Tang, Great Xia, and Great Ming all have a sun and moon chasing after them. There are a total of 11 sun and moon realm warriors. Those 2 guys are probably surrounded now. It's not easy to take them away. That's fine. Although the 8 great clans and the 3 great clans are pursuing them, they haven't encountered them yet. If we work together, we can easily lure them away. These people quickly reached an agreement. Only at this point could they work together for a win-win situation. This included negotiating terms with the experts from the 10,000 clans. They also needed to work together. Otherwise, they might become cannon fodder. The 10+ Sun and Moon clans quickly came to an agreement. The 2 Sun and Moon sect masters from the 6 Wings Divine sect wanted to rescue them. The 10,000 clans officially joined forces, the Sun and Moon Alliance. The news hadn't been leaked yet. The various manners in the human realm were also in a state of unrest. What should they do if Zhou Polong really attained the Tao? Would the 10,000 clans launch a large number of invulnerable attacks? Would there be a war soon? A war between the invulnerable realm. Yi Baishan's example was right in front of them. An invulnerable realm expert had died, but Yi Batian had still failed. What should they do now? Of course, at this moment, no one paid too much attention to it. Xia Longwu's popularity had dropped. This was inevitable. No matter how strong one's physical body was in attaining the Tao, it would at most be the next great Xia king or great Qin king. However, when a civilized master attained the Tao, it would be completely different. The human realm quieted down. The myriad clan sect was also very quiet. Other than the six-winged divine sect that was still entangled with Qin Yong, there were no other experts from the myriad clan sect that were active. During this period, all the experts had a feeling that a storm was about to come. Daming Manor. Su Yu only found out about this news the next day. Because of this matter, Niu Bendao once again came to his house and discussed it with him. "Kid, did you know about the consequences yesterday?" Niu Baidao also had a complicated look in his eyes as he said, "To be honest, if Zhou Polong is really a civilized master who has attained the Tao, you, kid, will have screwed him badly this time. But if not, that's not a big deal. After all, he doesn't have any friendship with you." What everyone cared about was whether or not Zhou Polong was a civilized master who had attained the Tao. If not, there were many human experts who were about to attain Tao with their physical bodies. They did not have their own unique characteristics. Whether they could fight with Su Yu or not was his own business. Su Yu shook his head. "How would I know that? Besides, who knows if he is a civilized master who has attained Tao? Even if he is, it has nothing to do with me. If he doesn't find trouble with me, I wouldn't be bothered to find trouble with him." Niu Baidao sighed. "Alright, but, if he really is a civilized master or not, after hearing what you said, there might be people who will vent their anger on you. Be careful. I'm injured. I need to go into seclusion to recuperate." Su Yu said calmly, "Principal, as for whether Zhou Polong is a civilized master or not, I can't care about that. I don't know how strong he is or whether he's a polytheistic master. He has suppressed the polytheistic master for many years. If he doesn't tell me, do you expect me to consider his position? Vent my anger, then vent my anger on him." He did not care too much. Whether or not he was a civilized master who had attained the Tao had nothing to do with him. Moreover, even if he was, could he really succeed? Su Yu was non-committal. It was good that he did not care about this anymore. It would be best if that fellow attracted some firepower. He would let the great Zhou Manor watch the show from day to night. Keep watching. Principal, it's useless for you to tell me this. Even if I were to stand out and say that I am spouting nonsense, would anyone believe me? Instead, they would feel that I have been threatened by the great Zhou Manor and that this matter has been confirmed. Niu Baidao was also speechless. That was true. Su Yu continued, "Mansion Master, I'm really going to go into closed-door cultivation for a while to recover from my injuries. I won't get involved in whatever happens next. After all, my strength is so weak." Weak? Dan Xiong isn't even as strong as you, how could he be weak? It shouldn't be a problem for him to fight someone at the 7th level of Lingyan, right? Your understanding of strength is really extraordinary. Niu Baidao nodded. Then you should heal your injuries. Oh right, I have a few old friends. That. I don't have much time left. Mansion Master, I have deduced this cultivation technique, but it requires a large amount of heaven origin energy to ensure its effectiveness. After all, it is used to extend one's lifespan, heal one's injuries, and heaven origin energy. There aren't that many of these things. I have some gains, but I don't have much left. I still have to cast my body. Niu Baidao was embarrassed. He was embarrassed, but that was also true. It was to extend one's lifespan, so he definitely needed some good things. Heaven Yuan Qi was considered good. At the human realm, there were at least some. If it was some top-grade heavenly materials and earthly treasures, then having a cultivation technique would be useless. But even if it was Heaven Yuan Qi, it was not unlimited. Niu Baidao also said awkwardly, Su Yu, on your side, can you still slightly absorb a bit of heaven yuan qi? Don't worry, I will prepare the demon essence blood for you to cast a body. The top-grade demon essence blood is actually not much worse than the heaven yuan qi. The effect of the primordial demon essence blood is especially good. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1367. 1367 Chapter 318 Undercurrent, Scheming, Asking for a Monthly 4. He was also helpless. He really had some old friends who were about to die. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that it was not his time yet to cultivate and see if he could recover. Su Yu said awkwardly, Principal, I really don't have much left. How about? I can impart cultivation techniques and let the seniors cultivate in the two great holy lands. Isn't the heavenly Yuan Qi mystic realm of the holy lands meant for people to cultivate? Speaking of mystic realms, a thought appeared in Su Yu's mind. Should I use the Sun-Moon divine text to create a mystic realm? It was specially designed to store heaven Yuan Qi. In case I have to stay in the cultivation room all day long and have to use a shadow barrier to envelop me at any time. Just like the Yuan Qi mystic realm, it was specially designed to produce heaven Yuan Qi. Of course, this heaven Yuan Qi needed to be provided by Su Yu himself. Just as he was thinking, Niu Baidao sighed and said, the mystic realm of the sacred land has to nurture the heaven Yuan fruit tree on one hand, and on the other hand, almost every year, there are people who want to enter the casting body. In fact, it consumes a lot of energy. If it could be casually absorbed, it would have been sucked dry long ago. We can't break the root. If it's broken, that human realm wouldn't even have the heaven Yuan Qi sacred land. But those seniors are all heroes of the human realm. Could it be that the sacred land isn't willing even if they have a chance to live? Niu Baidao shook his head and said, it's not that they are unwilling. It's just that they lack the heaven Yuan Qi. Moreover, to put it bluntly, it's not like there are only one or two people in the human realm who will die if they don't suffer from poverty. If you give one of them a chance to extend his life, are you going to give the other one a chance? If everyone is going, how many days will it take for the sun and moon to continuously absorb the heaven Yuan Qi? At that time, even some people who have not reached the end of their lifespan might be tempted. They are afraid that if everyone is done absorbing the heaven Yuan Qi, I will also reach the end of my lifespan in a few years. Should I go in as well? Su Yu, now you understand what I mean, right? Therefore, the best way is to be self-sufficient so as to avoid bringing about a series of troubles. Su Yu nodded. This was indeed very difficult to do. Why is there so little heaven Yuan Qi in the human realm? There are quite a number of it in other great worlds, right? The leakage of Yuan Qi before the human realm, coupled with, he paused for a moment, Niu Baidao then said, coupled with the fact that a few hundred years ago, dozens of invincible Tao protectors actually absorbed too much Yuan Qi and heaven Yuan Qi all of a sudden. The other great worlds took a step-by-step approach and could allow heaven Yuan Qi to recover. At that time, the human race could not do anything about it. At that time, there were actually more than 2 heaven Yuan Qi holy lands, but there were many of them. However, in order to increase their power, they could not care about the future. If they found one, they would be quickly sucked dry. It's not just the humans. The 10,000 races did the same. It's not their territory anyway. When these people found such a place, they absorbed it at all costs and destroyed many sacred lands. Niu Baidao shook his head and said, there are gains and losses. There is quite a lot of heaven Yuan Qi in the human realm and there are many relics in there. However, there are still many relics that have not been developed or discovered. Adding the consumption from a few hundred years ago, how many more do you think there are now? The heaven Yuan Qi in the 2 great holy lands was actually not a good place in the past. It was because the heaven Yuan Qi was not too dense that it was preserved. It was because some experts did not fancy this small place anymore. Su Yu was also speechless. No wonder. Niu Baidao saw his hesitation and asked, "How much heaven yuan qi do you think it would take for a person to successfully cultivate a cultivation method and extend their lifespan? If one cultivates a cultivation technique, one would have a lot of openings. The sun and moon openings are more difficult, so it would be best to use heaven yuan qi to open up one's openings. Under normal circumstances, one would need at least 20 heaven yuan fruits. This is the completion of a cultivation technique. After that, one would have to constantly absorb heaven yuan qi to remove impurities and stimulate the vitality of the body. The stronger one is, the greater the consumption. The more severe the injury, the greater the consumption. Now that he has reached his limit, he still has injuries that are hard to heal." Su Yu calculated for a moment. "If I really want to heal them, I would need at least 100 heaven yuan fruits per person. This is the basic amount." Niu Baidao's expression changed again and again. F***ck. So many. Actually, it was not that many. The amount of heaven yuan qi contained in the heaven yuan fruits was not too much. 100 heaven yuan fruits would probably be enough to cast 9 pieces of heaven yuan qi. 9 suns and moons to be cast. Was it worth it to treat one sun and moon? It was still worth it. The key point was that the 2 great holy lands did not produce much in a year. In that case, in a year, other than nurturing the heaven origin fruit tree, the 2 great holy lands would probably only have enough for 1 or 2 suns and moons to recover from their injuries. 1 or 2 suns and moons could only enter a year, which was too little. Su Yu did some calculations. If he were to extract 100 heaven origin fruits, he would probably need close to 100,000 merit points. Actually, it was quite a lot. This was still something that he could extract. If he could not extract it, he might not be able to obtain the quota to the Holy Land. Of course, he would not say that he could provide it now. As for Hu Qi, Su Yu only gave her a part of it. It was enough for her to open her mind and barely stimulate her vitality. It would have a certain effect on prolonging her life. However, her physical injuries had not recovered, and her physical body had not reached a peak. Under such circumstances, she could only guarantee that she would not die for the time being. She had to at least leave some foundation for herself. Moreover, Su Yu had other plans as well. Seeing that Niu Baidao was in a difficult position, he whispered, Actually, there might be a piece of heaven vitality treasure land in the relic that I inherited. Of course, I'm not sure." Niu Baidao's gaze changed. After a long while, he said in a low voice, "You, really have a relic?" "Nonsense. If I didn't, would you believe me?" Su Yu was speechless. "If I said I didn't have one, no one would believe me. Cough cough, principal, this is a secret. Don't tell others. Your old friend. I'm still injured. Sigh, how about this, I'll see what the situation is like. If it doesn't work, I'll find an opportunity to go out. But principal, you have to cover for me. Otherwise, if I go out, I'll be courting death. As for letting others go, no one else can go, no one can go in, only I can go in." You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1368. 1368 Chapter 318 Undercurrent, Scheming, Asking for a Monthly 5. Niu Baidao was somewhat moved. You're going to retrieve Tian Yuan Qi? In order to save his old friends? Wasn't this a little inappropriate? Su Yu smiled and said, As a person, the manor head will understand after interacting with me for a long time. A drop of kindness should be repaid with a gushing spring. The manor head protects me, and the manor head protects me. Can I disappoint the seniors? Niu Bendao sighed. Su Yu was indeed a person of affection and righteousness. He also saw it in his eyes. He could ignore Bai Feng, Lu Wenyan, and the others, but time and time again, he took on some troubles that did not belong to him. Just this time, if he really wanted to snatch Shan Xiong's divine text, so what? If he did not want the divine text and wanted a large number of heavenly materials and earthly treasures, would Zhou Pulong agree? In the end, he didn't even have the chance. He chose to exchange the divine texts for the divine texts. All the grudges from the past would be written off. This included the time when he had conned and killed a group of people, as well as exposing many things, such as cultivation techniques and ruins. Actually, many things were for Bai Feng and the others, including pardoning their sins and conning and killing those experts who had attacked them. He wanted to refuse, but when he thought of how his old friends were about to die, a long while later, he said in a low voice, "I won't say any more polite words. They still have some time. If you need anything, you can look for me at any time. If you really want to leave the mansion, I can help you arrange it. You're already injured. Even if it's the mansion master's side, I can help you cover it up. No one will know that you've left the mansion." In the civilized academy, he was confident that he could do it. No one would know that Suyu had left. The prerequisite was that Suyu did not expose himself. Suyu smiled and nodded. "Then I'll wait for a while longer. I'll heal my injuries first. In addition, I have to make some preparations to avoid being discovered. That would be troublesome." "All right." Niu Baidao said. He gritted his teeth and said, "You're even going to retrieve the treasures in the ruins. Don't worry. I won't introduce those unreliable old fellows to you. I'll definitely introduce you to a few loyal and reliable people. If you're in trouble at a critical moment, just let me know and I'll introduce you to a few of those old fellows who are willing to risk their lives to come help you." Suyu secretly laughed in his heart. "This is exactly what I want. The principal simply understands my intentions too well." Even though Niu Baidao said this, he still had some confidence. After all, he had lived a long life and had interacted with those people for a long time. A few hundred years was enough for him to understand each other. After settling Niu Baidao, Suyu was indeed prepared to go out for a trip. There were a few things that he had to do. First, he had to find a time to help Zhaoli Laoshe forge a weapon. Second, he had to go see Bai Feng Laoshe and the others. What was going on? He felt that something was wrong with the Great Xia Manor. Third, it would be best if he could see his father. It had been a year. In the past year, other than a few simple communications with his father through outsiders, he hadn't seen his father once. As for whether his father was really alive or imprisoned, he didn't know anything about it. He cultivated and went to the Institute of Civilization. Many things were originally intended to make his father safer and more at ease. But now, he had become the focus of attention of the human realm. It was likely that he had also implicated his father. On the surface, he did not dare to go to the heavenly battlefield. If he did, it would be a big problem. This included going to the heavenly battlefield to create a persona for himself, an identity that would prove his Tao in the future. It would not cause too many people to object. All of this needed to be prepared by himself, and he could not rely on others. Suyu had to plan ahead for the matter of the Tao. Although he might not be able to use it, Suyu felt that if he could not achieve the Tao, then there would probably be very few people in the world who could achieve the Tao. He would not be like the fifth generation, who caused opposition from all over the world and died miserably, implicating the younger generation. He would not follow the example of Xiaolongu. He would not kill for half of his life, but when he reached the path of cultivation, he would be so aggrieved that he would die. He would not follow the example of Zhou Polong and the others. In order to reach the path of cultivation, he would not hesitate to agree to some conditions of the 10,000 races and compromise for the sake of reaching the path of cultivation. That way, he would be no different from them. Then, the grievances of today would become a joke by then. It was better to beg others than to beg oneself. After my injuries recover, I'll cast my physical body 8 times. Then, I'll leave. Su Yu gave himself some time. With his physical body 8 times cast, he could be considered to have completed the body casting of the first layer of the soaring heavens realm. His strength wouldn't be weak either, so he could go out and experience the situation. It wasn't because of Su Yu's identity. If an ordinary person had such strength, they wouldn't be in too much danger in the heavenly battlefield. With his physical body 8 times cast, he would have close to the strength of 4,000 apertures. At that time, he wasn't a weakling. Before I leave, I have to go to the 100 Dao Pavilion. Putting everything else aside, I have to improve my weapon forging skills. Su Yu, who had already made up his mind, quickly made a decision and once again started to enter seclusion to recuperate. What does the disturbance in the outside world have to do with me? I'm not invincible. I have the heavy responsibility of protecting the human race. I'll shoulder those invincible responsibilities. When I'm invincible, we'll talk about this again. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1369. 1369 Chapter 319 Mystic Rank Weapon Forging Division 1. At the end of March, Su Yu officially entered closed-door cultivation and announced to the public that he was recuperating from his injuries. He self-detonated 144 yuan apertures, and his injuries were extremely serious. Under normal circumstances, if he self-detonated 144 yuan apertures, his physical body would be gone. Of course, that was only for normal people, normal geniuses, and Su Yu was not normal. Adding in the heaven yuan qi, he was also the best holy item for recuperating. On March 25th, and March 30th, Su Yu had recovered 10 acupoints. On average, he had recovered 2 acupoints a day. This was even when Su Yu was distracted by other things. Healing also happened faster and faster in the later stages. As his acupoints recovered more, the remaining acupoints would recover very quickly. Su Yu's budget was about 1.5 months. And in the outside world, there were actually people who judged that Su Yu's injuries, even if he was a monster, would not be able to recover without half a year. If it were someone else, they would not need to be healed at all. In the cultivation room, Su Yu continued absorbing the heaven yuan qi. As he cast his body, he healed his injuries. At the same time, he read some basic books and a large number of weapon forging books. When he fought Shan Xiong that day, he did not even use a literary soldier. The main reason was that his literary soldier was too weak. A half-mystic rank against Shan Xiong would easily be shattered. Su Yu couldn't be bothered to find someone to forge it. It was the same even if he didn't need literary soldiers to deal with Dan Xiong. The art of forging weapons was unique to each sect. Su Yu was learning the art of forging weapons from the Daming Mansion while Zhao Li's art of forging weapons was still considered traditional. However, some of the books and introductions from the Daming Mansion were a little unconventional. Blood Essence Forging Art of Forging Weapons. The book Su Yu was reading at the moment introduced a method of forging weapons using the power of blood essence. It was very bloody and brutal. Hu Qi had refined a sun and moon that day. In fact, it was this blood essence forging art of forging weapons that was quite brutal. In the human realm, it was also not very popular. However, back then, when the sun and moon of the myriad clans had ambushed them, Hu Qi had retaliated. Therefore, after refining the other party, no one made a sound. Normally, this kind of weapon forging technique was very criticized. Refining the power of blood essence. Su Yu read for a while and did not intend to try it. It was not bad to learn more things. These few days, he was very relaxed. His mood was much better after reading the book. Maybe I can go to the 100 Path Pavilion and try it out. Starting from the first level, I will try it out layer by layer. The appearance of the five elements divine text provided Su Yu with a great help in forging weapons. It could be considered a top-grade auxiliary divine text. As for the God-expanding hammer, Su Yu felt that it would be more effective if it was combined with the five elements divine text. As for the matter of the yang aperture, Su Yu currently had no way to try it out. He would wait until all the apertures had recovered. Of course, some of the captives below could actually try it out. He had roughly discovered the location of the yang aperture. If he had time, he could let them try to open it. As for whether or not people died, he was not responsible. As he read these books, Su Yu also read some other books. He would sometimes read some of the invincible manuscripts that he had obtained. Now, when he read the divine texts, he also had some pertinence. Space divine texts, invisible divine texts, breath-concealing divine texts, and changed divine texts. He needed all of these divine texts. Su Bin, who had been visiting the Chamber of Commerce, had also returned in the past 2 days. Su Yu had also asked him what kind of divine runes he had been looking at, and he had gotten someone to buy them for him to look at more. The strength of a civilized master lay in these areas. They had too many methods. The divine runes were too mysterious. Actually, warriors were not bad either. It was just that warriors did not have that many cultivation techniques. Su Yu, however, also knew many cultivation techniques: water transformation, wind transformation. These could actually be changed through acupuncture points. It was just that the human race had too few of these types of battle techniques, and the 10,000 races also did not have many. As a result, warriors in the path of transformation were far inferior to civilized masters. Recuperating, forging a body, reading books. This was Su Yu's current daily routine. It was still very quiet outside. Perhaps the 10,000 races had just received the news and had not made a response, so Su Yu could not be bothered with these things. He just needed to take care of himself first. He had heard that Shan Xiong's journey back was fraught with danger. Even now, he had not returned to the Great Zhou Manor, so Su Yu was not in the mood to care whether he lived or died. In the blink of an eye, April arrived. April 1st. Below the 100 pavilions. This time, Su Yu kept a relatively low profile. He did not change his appearance, but he wore a fierce tiger mask. Don't think that wearing a mask would not keep a low profile. On the contrary, there were many people in the Daming Civilization Academy who liked to wear strange clothes. It was not surprising that there were even big shots who dressed as women. The one guarding the tower is still that elder Yun. Other people didn't notice Su Yu, but he did. He had to register and look at his student ID. In the end, as soon as Su Yu's honorary pavilion old card came out, he knew who this fierce tiger was. You want to go in again? Elder Yun's teeth hurt. The 100-path pavilion has only been cultivating for more than a month, and you want to go in again to wreak havoc? Cough cough. Su Yu was embarrassed. There was something wrong with your attitude. What did you mean by going in again? I can go in 3 times a month. I went in February, but I didn't go in March. It's already April now, okay. Okay. Su Yu responded and quickly said, Senior, can I change my name from the first floor? What should you change? No one is surprised that you've entered the 50th floor now. It's not good to be too high profile. Su Yu smiled and said, very few high-profile people have a good ending. Take a look at the 3 names on the 100th and 99th floors. Now, 2 of them are dead, and there's still 1 more. They are also in trouble. What he said made sense. There was simply no way to refute it. Elder Yun was also speechless. After a long while, he said, after you enter, infuse Yuan Qi and willpower into the first layer of the wall and change the name. What name are you going to change? Su Yu thought for a moment and said after a while, Zhou Pudao. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1370. 1370 Chapter 319, Profound Rank Weapon Forging Division 2. What kind of name is that? I'm speechless. The old Zhou clan has several Zhou Bujuos, but you call them that too. And you call them Zhou Bujuos? Which path did you break? Niu Baidao? Zhu Tiandao? Or who? Does this fellow intend to impersonate a member of the Zhou clan? The old man was speechless, and he couldn't be bothered to say anything. Waving his hand, he entered the room as soon as possible. He couldn't be bothered to say anything to Su Yu. This fellow didn't even treat his injuries and came here to challenge the trial. It's good that he's so bored. This way, he won't have to worry about taking away too many resources. Su Yu happily entered the 100 Dao Pavilion. On the first floor, the wall appeared again. Su Yu changed his name. He had to keep a low profile. Just as he said, almost everyone who didn't keep a low profile died. On the 100 Dao Pavilion's 199th floors, 2 out of 3 people died. Zhou Pulong was also in a state of limbo. If someone really saw his name left in the 100 Dao Pavilion one day, they would also wonder if someone from the Zhou family had come. What does it have to do with me? Entering the first level, it was still an empty small room. This time, Su Yu had experience. He did not waste any more words. The 5 elements divine runes and the God-expanding hammer appeared and hammered the air. He wanted to let the 100 Dao Pavilion know that he was here to forge weapons. Next, they would arrange for him to take the weapon forging test. As expected, very soon, he reached the second level. In the air, a furnace appeared. This was the most basic forging method. Who among the experts would still use a furnace to forge? Zhao Li had already forged it out of thin air. What he forged wasn't a civil weapon, but a martial weapon. The forging difficulty of this item wasn't high. The main thing was that it was sturdy and sharp. It didn't require too many characteristics. Unless it was a custom-made weapon, under normal circumstances, the various manners would be able to mass-produce it. Large-scale equipment for the military. The items in this place were simulated as if they were real. Very good. Su Yu picked up some materials and started forging. He was powerful and had a basic forging foundation. It wasn't difficult for him to forge some basic weapons. On the second level, he was just a young lad who had just entered the examination. In the blink of an eye, Su Yu passed the examination and forged a trash weapon. It wasn't of high quality, mainly because the materials were rotten. After forging, the 100 Path Pavilion actually gave him a comment. The temperature hasn't reached 3 minutes and 31 seconds. The fire is weak by 3 minutes and 58 seconds. The fire is strong by 2 minutes. Su Yu was surprised. So that was how it was. I'll give you the most direct guidance. I'll tell you what went wrong during the forging process and how to correct it. In any case, the materials here were all fake, so there was no need to spend money to buy them. Holy shit. Su Yu was slightly shocked. This thing was powerful. No wonder the Great Ming Mansion's weapon forging system wasn't weak. There were quite a number of Earth-rank weapon forging divisions. However, with this kind of direct guidance, the students who were taught gained a little more artistry. It lacked a sense of accomplishment. It was a little too stereotypical. Weapon forging, pill forging. Many times, one would gain something from an accident. If one followed the template, one would be able to produce talent, but not a master. Of course, Su Yu didn't really care about this. It wasn't like he wanted to become a master. If he really had learned all the tricks, why would he care about this? To be able to become an Earth-rank weapon forging master, why would he care about whether the weapon he forged had a soul? The 100 Dao Pavilion was very special. Very quickly, he entered the third level and continued forging just like before. The materials were actually the same as the previous level. This meant that the 100 Dao Pavilion required him to continue forging such a weapon with the same materials. He wanted to see if he had accepted some of the lessons from the previous level. Interesting. This should be counted as increasing the score, right? He didn't know what the score of the rubbish weapon he had forged in the second stage was. However, if he passed the stage, it meant that the 100 Dao Pavilion had acknowledged him. It was still passable. They were all unranked weapons. This time, Suyu had absorbed the lesson from the previous stage. He still remembered the reminder from the previous stage. He deliberately controlled the temperature at a few joints according to the hints given by the 100 Dao Pavilion. After another series of crackling sounds, a small knife quickly appeared. Compared to the small knife from the previous round, it had an additional sharpness to it. He had passed the round once again. This time, the 100 Path Pavilion gave another evaluation, and in the end, they added another evaluation. The best among the unranked weapons can be exchanged for a few steamed buns. Suyu was stunned for a moment. Was this the evaluation given by the 100 Path Pavilion, or was it the evaluation given by one of the weapon forging masters from the past? Just a few steamed buns? Are you kidding me? This weapon is sold among the people. No matter what, it's worth at least a few thousand yuan. Is your steamed bun so expensive? Too lazy to argue with the 100 Path Pavilion, he continued to break through. On the fourth floor, the same materials, the same furnace, continued to forge weapons. It was still a martial weapon. And outside the 100 Path Pavilion, Elder Yun felt a little strange. Did that kid Suyu really change his name to Zhou Padao? The key was that his name didn't appear. Looking left and right, he carefully took out a mirror and peeked. Very quickly, he saw the fifth level, Zhou Padao, ranked 987th. The fifth level, 987th. Did that kid eat and shit in there? The 1 to 20 levels were aimed at cultivating one's character. With Suyu's strength, he had entered the fifth level and was actually ranked close to 1000th. How much trash was this? Did he just stay inside and not leave? What was the meaning of this? The first few levels would not give any additional benefits. Shaking his head, he could not be bothered. Geniuses were all unique. Who knew what Suyu was doing inside? As for what Suyu was testing, he could not tell. Probably only the owner of the 100 Path Pavilion could check. Who was the owner of the 100 Path Pavilion? He really did not know. It was said to be the Darming King, but the Darming King seemed to never care. Some people thought it was Zhu Tiandao, but Zhu Tiandao sometimes used the 100 Path Pavilion. His cooperation wasn't high, so it might not be his. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1371. 1371 Chapter 319, Mystic Rank Weapon Forging Division 3. Or was it one of the builders from back then? Even Elder Yun, the controller and caretaker, did not know much about this. After all, he had been guarding the 100 Path Pavilion for many years and had nothing much to do. He just needed to manage the order. Elder Yun was not in a hurry. After staying here for hundreds of years, he still cared about this little bit of time. Since Suyu was keeping a low profile, then he would just keep a low profile. Time passed bit by bit. After a few hours, Elder Yun checked once more, but he had no energy to complain. A few hours later, it was already the 10th level. Not bad, you've already reached the level of a character nurturing intermediate stage. You, Suyu, are really boring. That's good too. You can stay for as long as you want at the bottom of these levels. You can play however you want. At the same time, Suyu had indeed passed the 10th level. The same materials had been used. When he reached the 10th level, he continued to learn and gain experience. With Suyu's strength and control, he had actually forged a low-grade yellow rank weapon. Damn. This place is really awesome. Su Yu was also surprised. According to his experience and the forging methods he had learned, those materials could only be used to forge a low-grade weapon. However, at this moment, he had really forged a low-grade yellow rank weapon according to the improvements made by the 100-Path Pavilion. He had really forged a low-grade yellow-grade weapon. If he threw this thing on the road, the current Su Yu might not even have the time to pick it up. Perhaps he had turned the rotten into the miraculous and forged a weapon that shouldn't have been a yellow-grade weapon into a yellow-grade weapon. That was amazing. The experience imparted to me was definitely not imparted by an ordinary weapon forging master. It must have been imparted by a master-level expert. Su Yu was speechless. Previously, he felt that following the guidance of the 100 Dao Pavilion was a little lacking. Now that he thought about it, what was he? I don't know anything. A top-tier weapon forging master was equivalent to teaching you step by step. As long as you learned a little, it would be enough to fill your mouth with oil. To think that you would be so picky. Back then, the expert who left behind this weapon forging system was at least a top-tier Earth rank weapon forging master. I wonder if it's possible for it to be a heaven rank one. There seemed to be only one heaven rank weapon forging master, and that was the Heaven Casting King. He wasn't the king of the prefecture, but the invincible one after the prefecture was opened. He was a top-tier weapon forging master, the only heaven rank weapon forging master in the human realm. Normally, only the invincible ones would use a heaven rank weapon forging master. Of course, if one had the ability to find the Heaven Casting King for some top-tier sun and moon weapons, they would also have the chance to obtain them. Or if there were many Earth rank experts working together, they would also have the confidence to forge heaven rank weapons. Su Yu no longer cared about these things. When he completed the forging of the 10th floor, he would be able to obtain benefits from every 10 floors. Unlike the last time, this time, he did not give anything concrete. At the 10th floor of the 100-Path Pavilion, an old man suddenly appeared. It was an illusory image, but it was as if it was real, as if he was looking at the text of will. Forging weapons is actually very simple. A furnace appeared in front of the old man, and the materials appeared. It was the same as the one Su Yu used. Especially martial weapons. They are too simple. They are sturdy enough, sharp enough, and can withstand even more yuan qi, allowing them to unleash even greater strength. That is a good martial weapon. It does not need to cause trouble like a civil weapon. It also needs to be matched with a divine text. As the old man spoke, he nagged, "Watch carefully. Watch how I forge weapons. Learn well." Su Yu widened his eyes as he watched. You can still create flowers. The old man's speed was not slow, but it was not fast either. Su Yu could see it clearly. His procedures and techniques were actually similar to Su Yu's. However, when the old man forged it, it was as smooth as flowing water. It was extremely smooth from start to finish. There was no pause, no pause. He knew what materials were needed in the last second and what materials were needed in the next. Almost at the instant he needed them, the materials were integrated and he began to forge. It took Su Yu about 15 minutes to forge it once. The old man took about 12 minutes to complete the same process, but it took him 3 minutes less than Su Yu. After 12 minutes, a thin sword appeared. Su Yu took a look and saw that there were 3 golden patterns on the thin sword. It was the same rating for soldiers and civilians. 3. As for Su Yu, after a long time, he only managed to produce 1 golden pattern. There was a difference of 2 levels. Anything below 9 was considered yellow rank. However, there was still a huge difference in quality. After the forging was done, the old man's figure disappeared. Su Yu's mind was filled with the process of the old man's forging. He muttered to himself, top-tier weapon forging master inheritance. There was a top-tier weapon forging division in the 100 Dao Pavilion that was inheriting his weapon forging techniques, but he didn't know who it was. The old man didn't introduce himself either. Su Yu's interest was instantly piqued. There was already this on the 10th floor, so there must be more at the back. After reaching the 20th and 40th floors, there might be a checkpoint. As for what the checkpoint was for, perhaps, he could watch it a few more times. He wasn't too sure about this. It wasn't bad to read a few more chapters. This was a top-tier weapon forging division. The process of forging it time and time again was like a real scene replaying itself. This was equivalent to having a face-to-face exchange of experience with a top-tier weapon forging division. If the 10th floor wants to forge a yellow rank elementary weapon, then is the 20th floor intermediate. The 40th floor is a yellow rank pinnacle weapon forging division. The 60th floor is a mystic rank intermediate weapon forging division. The 80th floor is the top black rank. The 100th floor is the middle black rank. Su Yu thought to himself. Could it be that just by forging an earth rank weapon, he would be able to reach the 100th floor? However, there should be an earth rank weapon forging master in the academy. The middle black rank. Hu Qi, right? Zhao Tianbing seemed to be at the top of the earth rank. Hadn't he been to the 100 Paths Pavilion before? He couldn't be bothered to think about it. Su Yu didn't have high expectations for him. As long as he could forge a black rank weapon, it would be fine. As for the earth rank, it was still far from him. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1372. 1372 Chapter 319 Mystic Rank Weapon Forging Division 4. Continue to rise. Starting from the 11th floor, the materials and furnaces were changed to forge different types of weapons. It was no longer a simple weapon. The materials given could also be used to forge shields and other defensive equipment. Su Yu continued to start, absorbing the experience and nutrients layer by layer. From his point of view, the 100 Path Pavilion was becoming more and more precious. This thing should not be used as an offensive weapon, but as a supporting weapon. To use it to kill someone and destroy it was simply a crime. The 100 Dao Pavilion definitely contributed greatly to the prosperity of the Great Ming Mansion. The Great Ming King still had foresight. April 2nd. It had been a day. Elder Yun yawned and peeked once more. Very good, Zhou Pedao, 20th floor, ranked 178th. Not bad, he had raised his ranking. It wasn't easy to reach the 20th floor. The other party should be able to arrive within 20 minutes, but you have been here for a whole day. I wonder what this fellow is doing. What can you learn in the cultivation realm? Could it be that you went to study the support faculty? The old man chuckled. Stop fooling around. How could Su Yu have the time to learn? Could it be that he went to study weapon forging? It was said that he had a good relationship with Zhao Li, but this fellow didn't have the time to learn this either. The old man was leisurely and unhurried. Su Yu continued to play. Su Yu was indeed playing. Not only was he playing, he was also playing at all costs. The flame of civilization was burning. He felt that when he reached the 20th floor, he would not be able to digest the knowledge brought by the old man. On the 20th floor, the old man was forging weapons. This image had been repeated many times. This was a checkpoint that Su Yu liked. The checkpoint of the weapon forging system was very simple. On the 20th level, it was enough to forge weapons with 10 golden patterns. If one wanted to forge a weapon with 11 golden patterns, they would have to forge a weapon with 18 golden patterns. Only then would the effect disappear. They would be able to forge a weapon with 18 golden patterns. 18 golden patterns meant that the weapon was at the peak of the middle tier of the yellow rank. At this moment, Su Yu was observing the old man's forging over and over again. He was also learning from him. The old man's image did not disappear, and he did not stop either. He was no longer paying full attention to it when he was watching it for the first time. Instead, he was watching and learning at the same time. The old man dropped his hammer. He also dropped his hammer. The old man adjusted the flames. Su Yu also adjusted the flames. At this moment, he did not use any divine runes. These things could be discussed later. He continued forging time and time again. This place was too economical. He did not need real materials. Of course, using real materials would cost more. However, the experience should also be pretty good. Time and time again. After who knew how long. The old man's image had completely disappeared. Su Yu felt somewhat regretful. He still wanted to continue learning. Furthermore, the weapons forged by the old man would become stronger with each checkpoint. By the time the image disappeared, the weapons forged by the old man already had 18.5 golden patterns. It might not look as good as a yellow rank high-grade weapon, but in reality, this kind of talent could be used without expending the yuan qi of a yellow rank high-grade weapon. Using the yuan qi of a yellow rank middle-grade weapon was enough. This was similar to the effect of the literary weapon that Zhao Li had created for him. Of course, his was a peak yellow rank weapon. Impressive, impressive. A super master taught me dozens of times hand in hand to create the same weapon. Impressive. Only Su Yu had strong willpower. Otherwise, if he really had the temperament, he would be exhausted after the first round of forging. It had already been a day. However, Su Yu recovered too quickly. His 180 God apertures recovered at an extremely fast speed. Continue. Su Yu continued upwards. If there was a chance in the future, he might be able to try all 100 paths. Su Yu was in high spirits as he burned the fire of civilization. Some of the knowledge points that he had learned previously were also continuously digested by him. After the 21st floor, the difficulty of Su Yu's forging became even lower and he became even more proficient. 25th floor, 30th floor. On the 30th floor, Su Yu easily forged a weapon with 19 golden patterns. After that, he continued to pass the test. However, he did not succeed. It seemed that he could only continue to pass the 40th floor. On the 40th floor, this test required Su Yu to forge a peak yellow rank scribe. Only with 28 golden patterns would he be considered a peak yellow rank. This was also the limit of what could be forged in the air. Under normal circumstances, one could only forge a peak yellow rank weapon in the air. The main reason was that one's willpower was not strong enough. To forge a peak yellow rank weapon required a lot of energy. This time, Su Yu still passed the test easily. He came layer by layer and continued to learn. Creating a weapon with 28 golden patterns was not as difficult as he had imagined. The main reason was that his willpower was strong enough, and the God-expanding hammer was also powerful enough. However, at this time, Su Yu needed some things to assist him. For example, divine runes, and willpower. It was no longer as simple as forging as before. The old man's image appeared again, and he continued to teach Su Yu how to forge. April 3rd. The third day after Su Yu entered. For a few consecutive days, Su Yu did not appear at the academy or the Primordial Spirit Research Institute. Even Wu Lan and the others did not know that Su Yu had gone to the 100 Path Pavilion. As for the 100 Path Pavilion, due to the fact that they usually did not receive much attention, the name Zhou Pedao appeared a few times on the 40th floor. Not many people paid attention to it, and even if they did, they would not bother to care about it since they did not know each other. This time, Elder Yun was truly a little surprised. What exactly did Su Yu do inside? The consumption was not small. The 100 Dao Pavilion consumed a lot, but it was not the same as before. What it consumed was not willpower or yuan qi, but a special inheritance that he could not describe. This had happened before. The few alchemists, weapon forging masters, and divine talisman masters in the academy had also experienced such a situation in the past. This meant that these people were inheriting the heritage of the 100 Path Pavilion. Outside the 100-path pavilion, Elder Yun frowned. Did this kid really go to cultivate the support department? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1373. 1373 Chapter 319 Mystic Rank Weapon Forging Master 5. Reaching the 40th floor, no matter what support element it was already considered pretty good. If it was weapon forging, it was at least at the peak of the yellow rank. Furthermore, after being stuck at so many levels, it might be even stronger. It was even possible for it to be at the half-mystic rank. Mystic rank weapon forging master could be considered a master in the outside world. Mystic rank weapon forging master could also be compared to Ling Yun and Shan Hai. When one reached the earth rank, they could usually be compared to the sun and moon. Someone who could really forge a mystic rank pinnacle weapon, such as Zhao Li, had a status that was not lower than any Shan Hai. This kid, is he a weapon forging master? If that was the case, it was already very scary for him to be able to break through to the 40th level on his first time here. This meant that this kid's foundation was terrifyingly solid. Where did Su Yu come from? He hadn't learned the path of weapon forging, right? Su Yu was indeed having more and more trouble. However, the fire of a Tier 3 civilization, coupled with the old man's image, was simply a perfect match. Continue to forge weapons. The 5 elements divine text was continuously used, and there were 34 golden patterns. He was only 2 steps away from the top tier 36 golden patterns. By the time he reached 35 golden patterns, Su Yu could no longer forge any more. The image disappeared. He couldn't reach the end of the checkpoint. Unfortunately, when he reached the limit, he should be able to create 36 golden patterns. Back then, Zhao Li said that there weren't many people who could create 36 or 72 golden patterns. It meant that the weapon forging division had reached the peak of the weapon forging division. Those who could create profound grade weapons didn't mean that they could create 36 golden patterns. Su Yu closed his eyes to rest. His willpower was greatly exhausted. After resting for a while, he reached the 41st level. From this level onwards, he had to forge a black-grade literary soldier before he could pass. 3 chances. The first time he forged, he failed. The second time, he failed. The third time, he still failed. Su Yu's figure suddenly moved and he left the 100 Dao pavilion. Elder Yun saw him coming out and was about to speak when Su Yu said, 3 times a month. I still have 2 free chances. After saying that, he entered again. This time, he started from the 41st floor. Outside the 100-path pavilion, Elder Yun was speechless. I didn't even have the time to ask, what exactly are you cultivating in there? After a few hours, Su Yu came out again. The 3rd free chance. He ran in again. After a few hours, Su Yu appeared again. If it's a fee, how much is one time? Elder Yun subconsciously said, it's from my own academy. 100 points for a time, 200 points for a time. Pay 2,000 points first. Su Yu quickly transferred the money. As soon as he finished speaking, he entered again. Elder Yun was speechless. This kid was really generous. 2,000 merit points, not bad. Su Yu had been pulling the wool over his eyes the whole time, but this time, he managed to pull this kid. What exactly was this kid doing? He had forgotten to ask again. Next, he watched Su Yu enter and exit. In a day, Su Yu entered and exited 7 or 8 times, averaging once every 3 hours. When the 2,000 merit points were almost used up, this time, Su Yu did not come out again. And Su Yu had also passed the 41st level. This meant that Su Yu had already forged a Xian-grade weapon. He did not know whether it was a civil weapon or a martial weapon, but it was actually about the same. A civil weapon was slightly harder, but as long as there were many follow-up methods, he could also forge a civil weapon. And at this moment, no one knew that Su Yu could actually forge a mystic rank weapon. Earth rank weapon forgers. There were many people in the Great Xia mansion who could forge a mystic rank weapon, but in total, there were less than 20 people. At this moment, Su Yu could be said to be a master weapon forger. Of course, he had just entered the mystic rank. Calling himself that was a little shameless, but Zhao Li had no problem with it. Su Yu continued to grind in the 100 Dao Pavilion, day after day. His injuries were also getting better. Weapon forging was actually a process of cultivation. When weapon forging was successful, there would be some understanding and feedback. Especially the moment he became a mystic rank weapon forging master, Su Yu's willpower level directly entered the peak of rank 2. At this moment, it could be said that he had truly reached the peak of the soaring heavens realm. His divine prose, willpower, and divine aperture had all reached it. He was a true soaring heavens realm 9th stage civilized master. There wasn't the slightest bit of falsehood. Su Yu went into seclusion to heal his injuries, Zhou Pulong also went into seclusion, and Dan Xiong and the others also returned to the Great Zhou Manor. And at this moment, the focus of the outside world had also started to decrease. The Great Zhou Manor was very quiet, and the Daming Manor was very quiet. Only the Great Xia Manor was still not too quiet. With Bai Feng's return and the start of the construction of the Multicolored Divine Literature Academy, most people once again focused their attention on the Great Xia Manor. Very soon, it would be the next semester's enrollment. This time, the Great Xia Manor seemed to be recruiting quite a number of students from powerful clans. This also caused many people to be filled with worry. Recruiting too many students from powerful clans, was it really a good thing? The Polytheistic Literature Academy would officially start next semester. At this moment, many disciples from large clans were already preparing to apply for the Great Xia Civilization Academy and the Polytheistic Literature Academy. Other places had polytheistic literature departments, but they couldn't compare to the birthplace of the Great Xia Manor. Moreover, there was still the Sun-Moon Realm Hongtan here. Other places didn't have such polytheistic literature department civilized masters. The Great Zhou Manor might have them, such as Zhou Polong. However, this person was in closed-door cultivation and felt that it was more dangerous than Hongtan's side, so there weren't many people who chose to do so. This change lasted until the end of April. A month had passed since Su Yu's solo battle. Everything that needed to be fermented had already been fermented. On the day at the end of the month, Su Yu came out of the 100 Dao Pavilion. He did not linger and directly returned to the Primordial Spirit Research Institute. As for Elder Yun, he secretly checked the information. Zhou Polong, level 51. Su Yu spent close to a month in the 100 Dao Pavilion. He entered the 100 Dao Pavilion more than 100 times and spent 20,000 merit points. Finally, he stopped grinding. This made Elder Yun heave a sigh of relief. This kid was really rich. The key was that he didn't know whether Su Yu's martial strength had reached level 51 or something else. If it was a support element, then it would be a little scary. Mid-tier mystic rank. Pill refining, talisman making, weapon forging. At this stage, he could be considered a strong person. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1374. 1374 Chapter 320 Otaku wants to go out, Wanwan Gang requests to subscribe to Monthly 1. April 25. Su Yu walked out of the 100 Dao Pavilion and returned to the Primordial Spirit Research Institute with a low profile. This time, he stayed in the 100 Dao Pavilion for 25 days and repeated the 25 days of weapon forging. At this moment, his mind was filled with all kinds of weapon forging methods and procedures. No one could be like him and continue to forge weapons for 25 days. Even Zhao Li couldn't do it. Zhao Li's divine aperture hadn't opened as much as his, so his recovery speed wasn't as fast as Su Yu's. Su Yu's recovery speed was even faster, and if Xiao Li really exhausted his willpower, he would probably need to rest for a long time. Su Yu didn't need it. 51st floor, Mystic Rank Intermediate Weapon Forging Master. Of course, the 100-path pavilion was virtual after all. If he wanted to complete the forging of a real mystic weapon, Su Yu still needed to experiment a few more times to grasp the difference between real and virtual objects. Only then could he truly become a Mystic Rank Intermediate Weapon Forging Master. In the 100-path pavilion, Su Yu had forged a 46 golden patterns literary soldier on the 51st floor. This was also his current peak. No matter how strong he was, he couldn't do it. His control wasn't enough, his experience wasn't enough, his willpower wasn't strong enough, and he lacked the necessary knowledge reserves. Even so, Su Yu was very satisfied. It was faster than expected, even though he had spent a lot of money. Of course, in the past 25 days, he was not always forging weapons. He also knew how to heal and cast a body. It was just that the casting speed was a little slow. At this moment, Su Yu had just completed 7 casts. Long before he challenged Shan Xiong, he had already completed 5 casts. In more than a month, Su Yu had only completed 2 casts. His heaven origin qi was completely depleted. He gave a portion to Hu Qi. Zhu Tiandao had also used up some of it during the demonstration of the search stage. Su Yu had not refined some of the mountain-breaking Ox Lingyun's mid-late stage blood essence, and the heaven origin qi that he had previously used up was completely depleted. With the remaining mountain Ox Lingyun's blood essence extracted, he could roughly extract 50 heaven origin fruits. At Ling Yun's later stage, Su Yu felt that his current physical body should be able to withstand it. After all, he had already completed 7 casts, which was even more powerful than normal 7 casts. It shouldn't be a problem for him to be on par with some weaker Ling Yun's physical body. Absorbing a few drops of Ling Yun's later stage blood essence shouldn't be a problem for him. I used about 120 of the 150 heaven origin fruits to complete 7 casts. In addition to the heaven and earth rules reward on that day, I need about 20 casts in one go. This casting of my body costs twice as much as an average person. Su Yu also sighed. Currently, he needed about 1,000 merit points to extract an average amount of 1 heaven origin fruit. The cost of casting 20 of them was already 20,000 merit points. Logically speaking, he should be able to complete 10 casts of the blood essence he had exchanged for last time, but he had given away a portion of it. As for the remaining amount, he could only extract about 1 to 2 casts. After completing 9 casts, he had used up all his remaining points. Lord Xiaoho had given 1,260,000 merit points to Hu Xiansheng for 1 million merit points. Last time, he had spent 200,000, and the 100-path pavilion had spent 20,000. As for the remaining 40,000 merit points, he had bought some things and provided some items to the research institute. Now, there were not many left. 72 casting. Currently, I need at least 1,300,000 merit points. It's time to look for the manor head to ask for money. Su Yu did some calculations. His primordial spirit scripture, primordial spirit enlightenment art, and the highest version of the dual Wu fusion aperture art had all been spread through the Great Ming Manor. Now, it had already been a few months, including the primordial spirit enlightenment technique, which had the shortest spread time. It had been close to 2 months. It should be able to charge a lot of money, right? The entire primordial spirit scripture was exchanged for 100 merit points. Su Yu did not set a high price for the primordial spirit enlightenment technique either. Similarly, he only set a price of 100 merit points. Of course, the military set a very low price for the schools that they targeted, with a 30% discount. As for the fusion formula, the highest version was only priced at 50 merit points. The creator could get 40% of the income. Su Yu did a rough calculation on his own. The spread of the formula should be relatively small. After all, there were only a few civilized masters, but the immortal soul formula should definitely be quite a lot. If he spread it to one person, he could get 40 merit points. Of course, the Great Ming Mansion would get a 30% discount. This was what Suyu himself said. He could also get 28 merit points. If it was the military, he could also get 12 merit points. After exchanging 100,000 merit points, even if they were all from the military, Suyu could still get 2 million merit points. How profitable! Suyu sighed in his heart. He thought of the cultivation techniques like the 10,000 Literature Sutra and War God technique. The fees were more expensive than his. After being passed on for so many years, how much money did the Quest Realm and the War God Hall earn? After all, the Quest Realm and the War God Hall could also get 20% of the profits from the cultivation techniques. If the creators were the two Holy Lands themselves, they could get 60% of the profits. These two cultivation methods had been spread for decades, and it had not even been 100 years yet. If one person studied, even if they could only get 50 points, it would not be a problem for 1 million people of the human stage to study in a year, and they could earn 50 million points in a year. After decades, Suyu sucked in a breath of cold air. He probably had billions of merit points. Merit points weren't given out randomly. They were given out according to the value created by the cultivators. After evaluating the various values, the two great holy lands gave out merit points. As the supervision of the various manors, they definitely had the purchasing power of merit points. Billions of merit points. Even if they were the makers of merit points, the two great holy lands couldn't create and give out merit points randomly, destroying the economic system of the entire human realm. All these years, their income had been so high, but in the end, was it ruined now? Suyu recalled Wen Zhong's reminder that he had ruined some people's golden rice bowls. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1375. 1375 Chapter 320, Otaku Wants to Go Out, Wanwan Gang requests to subscribe to monthly 2. Previously, when the Zhou and Yuan families didn't say anything, he didn't pay too much attention to it. Now that he thought about it, those people really didn't hate him for smashing the dishes of billions of merit points. I still have to be careful. As Suyu thought about it, he entered the research institute. Wulan happened to come downstairs and saw him enter from outside. She was a little surprised. She raised her head and looked upstairs, then looked at Suyu. She opened her mouth and was somewhat at a loss. After a long while, she asked, "When did you come out? Wasn't she in seclusion?" "I came out in the morning. I went out to get some air." "In the morning?" Wulan looked at him and said doubtfully, "I've been playing with little Furball on the first floor in the morning. Why didn't I see you when you came down?" "I went out last night." "Last night?" Wulan thought for 3 seconds and understood. She looked at him with disdain and said, "You're injured, but you didn't come home at night. You went to that kind of place with injuries." "Suyu, the more I understand you, the more I realize that you're just like the others. You're also a shameless person." Suyu thought for a while before he understood what she meant. He was speechless, and he was too lazy to explain. He didn't care about what she thought, so he directly said, "Cut the crap. Have you guys made any progress recently?" "No." Wulan had a headache. "We've been developing the Divine Union technique recently. Senior Brother Wen and the others are focusing on this aspect. They've given up on the primordial spirit aperture. After all, compared to the primordial spirit aperture, the Divine Union technique might be more suitable for everyone. In addition, we're exploring the next version of the dual Wu joint aperture technique. We'll see if we can create a version with 72 or 108 apertures to help Shanghai complete the process of rapid aperture synthesis. Right now, it won't be of much help to the process of Shanghai fusing with one aperture. Everyone had given up on the primordial spirit aperture. Suyu had asked everyone to give up. He had some ideas, so there was no need to waste everyone's energy. The few elders had gone to study the acupoint fusion technique. Perhaps Suyu would really use the acupoint fusion technique very soon. They did not say much, including the higher version of the acupoint fusion technique. Suyu could also enjoy the fruits of their research, it was just that they did not know if there would be any results. If it did not work out, they would have to rely on Suyu to try it out bit by bit. Then during these days of closed-door cultivation, did anything else happen? Yes. Wulan gloated, over at the Great Zhou Manor, there have been a few big battles recently. A Heaven's Eye Divine Clan member, 8th level Sun Moon Realm, was spying on the Great Zhou Manor from afar. In the end, he was killed by Zhou Polong. On the Great Zhou Manor side, the manor head, Zhou Potian, has sent out a large army these few days. He is currently clearing out the members of the 10,000 races in the nearby area. Oh right, recently, there have been some assassins in the human realm. They have assassinated several Shanghai realm experts. The various manors are all on high alert. These assassins might be from the Six Wings Divine Sect. These fellows are very crazy. A few days ago, they were blocked by General Zhao and the others. In the end, they killed a few mountains and seas. The remaining 2 Sun and Moon realm experts were originally going to be unlucky. In the end, they were rescued. The 10,000 races actually sent out 8 Sun and Moon realm experts to rescue them. They have even alerted the Great Han King. As Wulan spoke, she sighed, it's fine if the Great Zhou Manor is unlucky, but the human realm has been too chaotic recently. I heard that the 10,000 clans have formed a cult master council, and the Sun Moon realm experts have moved together. Now, there won't be any cases of them being left alone. Also, experts from the 10,000 clans have sneaked in. These days, experts from the 10,000 clans have also been active. Also, in the 3 great sea regions of the human realm, there have been recent disturbances from the demi-humans and the aquatic race. I heard that experts from the 10,000 races have been sneaking in and reached some agreements with them. Also, the Grand Xia Manor has actually recruited Fiend God students. They are probably on their way now. Lord Xiaohe is really shameless. Suyu mourned silently for Lord Xiaohe. Was it really Lord Xiaohe's idea? Forget it, it was him. Because of the extremely high tuition fees, it was said that Lord Xiaohe had taken it away. That meant that he was the scapegoat. He would inevitably be scolded to death by the people of the Great Xia Manor. Now, the Great Xia Manor was saying that they would definitely take down Xiaolongwu. Taking down Xiaolongwu was almost becoming a mantra. Then what about my master and the others? Teacher Bai and the others are preparing for the academy, so they are temporarily free. I heard that the deputy prefect, Yuan Qingdong, hasn't said much recently. Suyu nodded. Then, is there any news about Mansion Master Xiaolongwu? Last time, he heard that Xiaolongwu had left the Great Xia Mansion. No, I don't know where the Mansion Master has gone to. Wulan shook her head, very quickly, she said, oh right, there's one more thing. That Wan Mingzi, you know him, right? He actually broke through and soared into the sky. Didn't he cultivate your primordial spirit scripture? This fellow brought a few people along and started to wander around the human realm. He's so silly. I heard that he went to some academies and found some geniuses. He said that he wanted to form a youth alliance and accompany him to the battlefield. He wanted to break through the barriers between the various manors and form a human realm youth alliance army. Suyu was slightly taken aback. A human realm youth alliance army? This, he recalled what Wan Mingzi had tried to persuade him to do back then. Putting aside the internal strife and joining a third party to break through the barriers, was he going to do it now? He had just soared into the sky. Suyu didn't have high hopes for him, but when he heard those words, he couldn't help but ask, what was the result? I've already said it's silly. Wulan curled her lips and said, he's still continuing to walk in the human realm. I heard that he's managed to convince 7 or 8 people. They're all of the idealistic type. Most of them are ordinary cultivators, and some of them are even speculators. They think that he's the grand-nephew of Mansion Master Wan and that he has some family background. They're just fooling around behind him. She really didn't think highly of him. A flight, but also to form what the Youth Alliance Army. Who do you think you are? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1376. 1376 Chapter 320, Otaku wants to go out, Wanwan Gang requests to subscribe to a monthly 3. Even if Su Yu and Shan Xiong went out to form an alliance, there might not be many people who would bother with them. Moreover, apart from the great Xia manor, Wan Mingze was almost unknown in the other manors. His only fame was probably that he was the grand-nephew of Wan Tiansheng. The Youth Alliance Army. Su Yu muttered. Using the younger generation to break the estrangement between the various manors. Wan Mingze was thinking too simply. Unless these younger generation were all top-notch geniuses from the various manors and had the support of powerful factions, there would be some hope for the various manors to completely unite. Right now, the armies of the various manors were all fighting for themselves. Unless there was an emergency, the great Qin king would have the authority to lead the armies of the various manors on the battlefield. What was the use of flying? The Hercules of the 2 holy lands were both flying. There were hundreds of thousands of them. What could a mere sky realm cultivator effect? He wasn't optimistic. Even though he wasn't optimistic, Su Yu still silently wished him well. Xia Huyo had said that Wan Mingze was either a hypocrite or a saint. Whether it was a hypocrite or a saint, since he had taken the first step. Then Su Yu wished him well. Even if his goal was to unify the human race, Su Yu wished him success. The human realm forces were too scattered. If he had the ability to unify the human race and gather all the strength of the human race to resist the 10,000 races, then Su Yu would still have to say that he was a true man, even if he became the only king of the human race. Thinking of his former classmate who had just entered the sky and started to travel the human realm to persuade the geniuses of the various manors, Su Yu still admired him. Wan Mingze, hopefully, it would have some effect. Didn't he come to the Great Ming Mansion? No, he went up north along the way and didn't go down south. As he said that, Wulan smiled and said, it's not like he didn't have any support. I don't know how this guy managed to convince Jiang Mu and Hu Wenqing's eldest disciple, Guo Xingquan, to support him. He went with him, and the 2 of them have also stepped into the sky realm. Senior brother Jiang Mu went too? Yes. Wulan smiled and said, I guess he's envious of that kind of ranger life. Senior brother Jiang has always liked to read all kinds of travel notes. You know that. Su Yu nodded. This was true. When Jiang Mu joined the Primordial Spirit Research Institute, this was what he said about his specialty. He had read thousands of travel notes, and he was the first one to bring up the matter of Bai Tianhao. Oh right. Wulan added, also, do you still remember that top 100 ranker from before? Zhan Hai, he went along too. That Wan Mingze guy really knows how to trick people. He actually managed to take them away. Zhan Hai. Su Yu smiled. This guy actually went as well. Wan Mingze really had some ability. Of course, when he said he was going to take them away. Su Yu glanced at Wulan. Didn't you come to Daming Manor with me too? Then, has my senior martial uncle received any news? No. Wulan also asked curiously, the 2 sun and moon disciples of the 6-winged god sect have been taken away, and the mountains and seas have been killed. In the end, there is still no news of Curator Chen. Could it be? She didn't say anything else. Could it be that he had been killed? Otherwise, there shouldn't be too much danger now. Why hadn't he appeared yet? Su Yu smiled and said, "Nonsense, he might be hiding somewhere. I don't know the news that the Sun and Moon disciples of the Six-Winged God sect have escaped." Even though he said that, he still had some worries in his heart. What about my senior sister? She's still in closed-door cultivation, right? Wu Lan shook her head. I'm not sure about the specifics. I haven't heard from her in a few days. With Elder Hong around, she should be fine. Alright, then I understand. After roughly understanding what had happened this month, there were quite a few things. In conclusion, the world was even more chaotic. The myriad religions had joined forces, the experts of the myriad races had once again infiltrated the human race, and the Great Zhou Manor had also erupted into chaos. In any case, it was not too peaceful. I might still need to recuperate from this. You should hurry up and become stronger as soon as possible. If you really can't open up more than 72 divine apertures, then it's fine. You can just enter the sky. No. Wu Lan refused. I'm still waiting for my divine prose to be completed. I'm still extracting willpower to improve myself. Then just wait. Su Yu could not be bothered to persuade her. This woman had previously said that she wanted to soar into the sky, but her expression changed the moment she turned her head. Woman, heh. Wu Lan ridiculed him in her heart, but she did not know what he was thinking. She asked, when will you be able to finish recuperating? Around 2 to 3 months. Will it still take that long? Yes. Alright then, you can continue your seclusion. Without you, we'll still be working. I'll keep an eye out for you. Su Yu could not help but laugh. Alright then, suit yourself. After chatting for a while, Su Yu gave a few perfunctory words before quickly walking out again to ask Zhu Tiandao for money. He had to purchase a large amount of blood essence and also some materials to forge weapons. He had quite a number of them last time. He had asked Xia Huyo to bring them back to the Great Xia Mansion and give them to Zhao Li. Great Ming Mansion, City Lord's Mansion. Su Yu entered the City Lord's Mansion without any restrictions and was quickly let through by the guards. At the entrance, he happened to meet Zhu Qinyan. Now that Zhu Qinyan saw Su Yu, her gaze was a little complicated. Su Yu, who had defeated Shan Xiong, had made a huge change in everyone's impression of him. Everyone knew that Shan Xiong was a genius, but he had still lost to Su Yu. Zhu Qinyan sometimes wondered what would happen if she really wanted to find a man like Su Yu. Shang Tianjiao from the Big Shang Mansion had risked everything for Shan Xiong. To Zhu Qinyan, she had never left the Big Shang Mansion before. However, she had read a lot of romance novels in the market. This feeling of accompanying a hero and wandering around the world must be quite good, even though Su Yu had not wandered around the world yet. She was still thinking about it when Su Yu saw her. He turned a corner and left her alone. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1377. 1377 Chapter 320 Otaku wants to go out, Wanwan Gang requests to subscribe to monthly 4. Last time Zhu Tiandao said that Zhu Qinyan wanted to seduce him, Su Yu still remembered it. Women are all obstacles in the way. Don't talk about the love between men and women. He was used to Wu Lan because Wu Lan didn't talk about these things. Zhu Qinyan, forget it, stay away from her. Su Yu naturally knew about Shang Tianjiao and Shan Xiong. He felt that Shan Xiong's strength wasn't as strong as expected. Perhaps Shang Tianjiao's influence had already affected Shan Xiong. Otherwise, Shan Xiong might be even stronger. Zhu Qinyan could not help but curse in a low voice when she saw him running so fast. This fellow, is he crazy? Running away when he sees me? Did I offend you? Su Yu did not care what she thought. Very soon, he saw Zhu Tiandao in the back garden. Old Zhu was fishing. When he saw him coming, he smiled and said, "How's your injury?" "It's all right. He'll recover in a few months." Zhu Tiandao could not help but curse in his heart. *CK your grandpa. In a few months, he could feel that this fellow's 144 yuan aperture that had exploded had at least recovered more than half of it. The further he went, the easier it became. He would definitely be able to recover after a month. He recovered so quickly. Zhu Tiandao was envious. Not only were his apertures about to recover, his physical body seemed to have become stronger. No, his willpower seemed to have increased as well. The other party was in closed-door cultivation to heal his injuries, and that was true healing. On the other hand, Suyu had been in closed-door cultivation for a month. Not only had his injuries recovered quite a bit, but his strength seemed to have improved greatly as well. Suyu did not stand on ceremony either. He went straight to the point and said, "Manor head, I've been spending quite a lot of energy on healing my injuries recently. I've already given all the meritorious deeds that the great Xia Manor gave me to Principal Hu. On your side, can you give me a portion of the profits from a few cultivation techniques?" "What do you mean by a portion?" "Just tell me what you want and I'll give it to you. It's not a big deal." Zhu Tiandao was very generous. He did not lack money. Suyu said with a smile, "Blood essence, a large amount of blood essence, countless blood essence. I don't have any heavenly yuan qi left to use in the body forging process, and I don't have any blood essence either. It would be best if I had the blood essence of a god or a demon. I need a lot of it. A lot." Zhu Tiandao looked at him and calculated. For a normal person, 10 drops of blood essence would cast their body once, but for Suyu, he would need to double it. Killing a primordial fiend god in mid-air should be enough for him to cast his body once, right? If that was the case, killing 30 to 40 of them should be enough. Suyu should have cast his body 36 times. 30 to 40, forget it. Daming Manor had killed so many primordial fiend gods. It was likely that a battle of the sun, moon, and even invincibility would break out. Who asked the other party to have so few primordial fiend gods? It was better to pay the money and let this kid think of a way himself. Split the money. Currently, a portion of the large manor has yet to be settled. However, it has also settled some of the large manor's revenue for the first quarter. The large manor will withhold 30%, and the academy will withhold 10%. Zhu Tiandao said, "A total of 6 million points have been settled. In reality, we only got 40%, 4 million points. In addition, because of the discount, the Daming Manor has settled 4 million points. You can split 40%, 560,000 points. If you need it now, I'll settle 96 million merit points for you. Close to 3 million merit points." It had only been a short while. It was simply terrifying. There were still many areas that had yet to be settled. It could be seen just how much profit these cultivation techniques could bring Suyu. However, Suyu knew one thing. He said, "According to the rules, I'm from Daming Manor. I can only take 50% of those that have been settled. I can split it equally with the manor in exchange for their support so that the cultivation technique can be passed down and not be stolen." In other words, Suyu could not guarantee that the Daming Prefecture would ensure that his cultivation method could be passed down and not be pirated. He could not hold the pirates accountable. Therefore, he had to split the money from the various prefectures equally with the Daming Prefecture. Zhu Tiandao did not seem to have mentioned this. Without the support of the prefecture, the other prefectures would allow the cultivation method to be pirated. There was nothing you could do unless you stopped creating the cultivation method. However, that meant that there was no profit at all. Therefore, many times, some commoners would really create the cultivation method, they would choose to buy it out for the strong. Just like how Suyu had bought out the 2 versions of the convergence method to the Great Xia Mansion. As for what happened after that, that had nothing to do with him. Of course, Suyu still retained the right to receive 1 merit point. When that time came, the Great Xia Mansion would pursue the responsibility of the other Great Manors for pirating. Similarly, if the other Great Manors dared to pirate the cultivation method that was being circulated, the Great Ming Mansion would pursue the responsibility. Zhu Tiandao smiled and said, "There's no need for that. It's nothing much. On the Daming Manor's side, intercepting quite a few is actually enough. At the very least, it's enough to feed those tens of thousands of strongmen. A few cultivation techniques and the profits from a large manor were enough to feed tens of thousands of strongmen." It was clear how high the profits were. "Let's follow the rules." Suyu smiled and said, "Manor head, don't break the rules just for me. 76 million merit points is enough." Zhu Tiandao did not insist. He smiled and said, "That's fine too. Anyway, if you need anything, just look for me." As he said that, he paused. "Forget it, let's not talk about it." He had just been slapped in the face. When Suyu said that he wanted the blood essence of the gods and demons, he naturally thought that it was the blood essence of the primitive gods and demons. He did not have that much, so it was fine if he did not mention it. Suyu quickly said, 1,500,000 merit points are needed. As for the rest, if the mansion master has any mountain ox, iron-winged bird, cloud tiger, or soaring cloud blood essence, you can give me some according to the value. That much? Zhu Tiandao was surprised. This kid really wanted a lot. 260,000 merit points. Suyu smiled and said, I need to extract some blood essence from my talent. This item consumes too much. That works too. There aren't many mountain ox. A few days ago, there were people who wantonly bought them. We don't have much in stock, but we do have a lot of others. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1378. 1378 Chapter 320, Otaku wants to go out monthly tickets, 5. Suyu nodded. Who else could Xia Huyo have accepted? This fellow was really long-handed. Even the Daming Manor had their own channels. Then I'll get someone to send it to you later. You brat, you can earn and spend it. 260,000 merit points is quite a lot. After laughing for a while, Zhu Tiandao was just about to say a few more words when Suyu quickly said, in addition, I'll have to trouble the manor head to give me 100,000 merit points worth of weapon forging materials. I need them from the yellow grade to the mystic grade. Oh. Zhu Tiandao was stunned for a moment. Didn't you get a huge pile of them from the Tiani Divine Sex treasure? I gave them away. Damn. Zhu Tiandao had to admit that this kid was really a spendthrift master. A few 100,000 merit points. He gave them away. That's right. That fellow just now insisted on taking 2 million merit points less. Suyu was a person who could infuriate people when he was stingy and scare people to death when he was generous. Even without asking, he already knew who to give it to. Zhao Li. That guy was poor and had a good relationship with Suyu. He gave away hundreds of thousands of merit points just like that. Could it be that he was giving it to Zhao Li as well? He didn't ask in detail and just let Suyu do as he pleased. Let's get someone to send it over later. Is there anything else you need? To a mansion, a few 100,000 was actually not a lot. To Suyu personally, this was an astronomical figure. Suyu thought about it. Did he need anything else? After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, I still need a batch of mountain and sea realm blood essence. I don't need much. I just need 10 drops of each type. I want all kinds of blood essence. It would be best if they are of the first or second or third level of the mountain and sea realm. Making blood essence. Can I make mountains and seas? Zhu Tiandao was shocked. This was his first thought. Su Yu smiled but did not say anything. Fine, Zhu Tiandao did not ask anymore. He was shocked. He was thinking about a question. Could it be produced? If it was produced, could Su Yu use it? If he used it, wouldn't he be able to unleash the battle prowess of a mountain and sea realm? F***ck. You are so young, how old are you? Okay, I don't need money to buy these. I still have a lot of stock here, 10 drops is not too much. Then. Thank you, manor head. Su Yu didn't bother with formalities and left quickly. The moment he left, Zhu Tiandao touched his chin and muttered, to prepare so much blood essence, even a Shanghai realm would need to be prepared. Is he preparing to leave? Otherwise, there was no point in bringing the blood essence of the Shanghai realm unless he studied it himself. He didn't understand, but he had a feeling that this brat wanted to leave. Leave, to the Great Xia Manor. Or where? Is he trying to escape? That shouldn't be the case. I didn't do anything to him, did I? Zhu Tiandao fell into deep thought. Su Yu had actually launched quite a number of cultivation techniques, so it was hard to say if there were any more powerful cultivation techniques. Logically speaking, their value should have been squeezed out by now. However, Zhu Tiandao didn't think so. Putting aside cultivation techniques, this brat's talent and strength were both worthy of the Great Ming Manor's full investment. He couldn't let him escape. It's chaotic outside now. How dangerous is it? If this kid wants to go out, it's too dangerous. Zhu Tiandao muttered. He couldn't let anyone go out, right? It seemed like he was imprisoning him. It was really embarrassing. He lightly knocked on the stone table. After a long while, Zhu Tiandao opened his mouth and said, "Anying." "Sir." The void trembled slightly. A moment later, a black figure appeared and half knelt on the ground. Zhu Tiandao said plainly, "You have been following Su Yu recently. You don't have to follow me anymore. You don't have to show your face unless it's a life-or-death situation." "Sir." Aning said in a low voice, "Sir, your subordinate's responsibility is to protect Sir. How can Su Yu's safety be compared to Sir's? You're protecting me." Zhu Tiandao laughed and said, "You're at the 7th level of the Sun Moon, protecting my ass." He was more or less a handyman. However, your invisibility technique has also reached the peak of perfection. You don't need to worry about anything else if you follow him. If you encounter a crisis that you can't handle, you don't need to show your face. If this kid wants to go out, he naturally has some confidence that he won't be recognized by others. Don't follow him too closely to avoid being exposed. Of course, no one knows of your existence. Even if you're exposed, they might not know that it's Su Yu. Aning could not disobey and could only nod his head, "I understand." After saying that, he continued, "If he goes to the heavenly battlefield, I will not be able to sneak in through the entrance." "Sir, what should we do?" There was invincibility near the entrance of the heavenly battlefield. Unless they went through the passageway controlled by the Myriad Clan sect, who knew where it was? Who knew if there would be invincibility of the Myriad Clan guarding outside? That's true. Zhu Tiandao thought for a moment. He smiled and said, "However, only invincible can discover you. There are still a few extremely powerful 9th-level Sun-Moon cultivators. If you want to sneak in, just sneak in. If Invincible discovers you with my mark, he won't say anything. If I really ask you, just say that you're carrying out a mission for me. Your subordinate understands. Go." As Zhu Tiandao said that, he suddenly said, "Also, don't have any evil thoughts. If he goes to any ruins, you just have to guard outside." Zhu Tiandao's voice was indifferent as he said, "Shadow, entering the ruins doesn't mean that you can become invincible. Do you understand?" "I don't dare." Zhu Tiandao nodded and said with a smile, I believe that you won't do that. Becoming invincible, no matter what, it will take time, right? I can still find you. Your subordinate understands. Zhu Tiandao waved his hand slightly, and the shadow instantly disappeared. Zhu Tiandao smiled. This kid couldn't run away. If he wanted to run, he had to ask the shadow. If he couldn't run away, then it didn't matter where he went. The shadow of the seventh layer of the sun and moon was guarding, so it wasn't a big problem. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1379. 1379 Chapter 320, Otaku Wants to Go Out 6. At the same time, Suyu was slightly startled as he continued walking. He did not show any emotion, but his heart was filled with suspicion. The sun and moon are staring at me. The Dao protector of the Great Ming Mansion. Right in the Great Ming Mansion, right under old Zhu's nose, the sun and moon are suddenly staring at me. Is there a need to do that? The sensing jade is still a little troublesome. I hope that I can improve it. At the very least, I have to mark out whether it's one sun and moon staring at me or two. Is it the same person who is only responsible for changing the color every time? How F** King unreliable? Suyu was also speechless. It wasn't reliable at all. Right now, the sensing jade was constantly changing its color. There was nothing he could do about it. In the academy, there were often experts scanning him. Some were experts protecting him, while others were just casually scanning him. Right now, it was already to the point where Suyu couldn't even muster up his spirit to change his color. Before I leave, I can ask Senior Hu Qi if he can make some improvements. He should be coming out of seclusion soon. Can an Earth-rank weapon forging master be improved? The grade of this induction jade wasn't low. I hope so. This item's warning effect was top-notch, and it could prevent anyone from tracking him. This time, he didn't wish for anyone to know about his departure from Daming Manor, and he didn't wish for anyone to protect him either. Even if it was out of goodwill, there was no need for it. If he hid it well, no one would be able to find him. If someone were to follow him, it would be troublesome instead. If an expert were to be discovered by others, they would doubt his identity even more. Extract the blood essence, heaven origin chi, cast another body, improve the sensing jade, and outline a few divine runes, then I can leave Daming Manor. Suyu was eager to give it a try. Not to mention, up until now, not a single person had gone out to train. On the journey from Starfall Mountain to Daming Manor, he had just killed a large group of experts. With Director Ho following him, he was not alone. Thinking about it, he was really capable. He had already reached Zhang Lingyun's level, yet he hadn't gone out to train by himself. I'll cast my physical body 8 times. I'll cast my physical body a few more times on the way. When I go to the heavenly battlefield to look for my father, I might be able to swallow the essence blood of the mountains and seas. I'll open the mountain and sea atlas. At the critical moment, I'll possess the battle prowess of the mountains and seas. In the heavenly battlefield, I can be considered an expert. Now, he felt that there were many mountains and seas, and many suns and moons. That was because he had come into contact with too many people of such a high level. All sorts of manor heads, all sorts of sect masters, all sorts of invincible descendants. It would be strange if these people weren't strong. In the grand celestial battlefield, there wouldn't be so many experts gathered together. The experts were all gathered together with the experts, so they wouldn't come into contact with those people. Meeting a mountain and sea expert was already considered a top-tier expert. I'm going out. I need to make more preparations. I'm suddenly a little excited. Suyu was secretly excited. After being a homebody for so long, he really wanted to go out and see things. Now, he already felt that his knowledge was somewhat lacking. He only read books and didn't practice. No matter how many books he read, it was sometimes difficult to experience that feeling. But I still need an identity, it's best if I can find out the identity. I'll have to rely on Manor Head Nyo to prepare this for me. After all, I took the risk to go out in order to get Heaven Yuan Chi for his old friend. Father, I'm here to look for you. Suyu muttered in his heart. It had been a year since they last met, and he was starting to miss his father. At the same time, the heavenly battlefield, Eastern War Zone, the headquarters of the Great Xia Manor. Su Long was lying on a chair in the small courtyard, looking at the sky. He was a little absent-minded. What was that little brat doing right now? The last time he received the news, it was that little brat who had nearly killed Shan Xiong. He was also injured and had lost 144 of his elemental apertures. Just hearing about it made his heart ache. This brat had lost more apertures than I had opened. Is he all right? It has already been a month. How are his injuries? This great Zhou manor is really not human. My son is such a well-behaved child, yet you guys actually went to beat him up. You're 2F** king inhumane. You deserve to be almost beaten to death by my son. I heard that Zhou Pulong is a little troublesome, you deserve to have your disciple beat up my son. If I wasn't weak, I would have also come to find trouble with you. On this day, both father and son were thinking of each other. But there was a barrier between them. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1380. 1380 Chapter 321 Yang Aperture, 1. On the afternoon of the 25th, Zhu Tiandao sent over a large amount of blood essence and weapon forging materials. Su Yu began his seclusion to extract the Heaven Yuan Chi. Zhu Tiandao gave a lot of 260,000 merit points of blood essence, which was not more expensive than Xia Huyo's. Zhu Tiandao naturally did not plan to make money from the blood essence given to Su Yu. Similarly, Xia Huyo did not make money from the blood essence given to Su Yu. It took Su Yu 3 full days to extract all of the blood essence. Including the remaining Mountain Ox Ling Yun's mid-late stage blood essence from last time, Su Yu had extracted a total of about 300 heaven origin fruits this time. According to Su Yu's situation, there was hope for him to cast another 15 times. On the night of the 28th, Su Yu finished extracting heaven origin chi and walked out of the cultivation room. Without stopping, he went straight to the 4th floor laboratory. One of the laboratories had been transformed by Su Yu into a laboratory suitable for weapon forging. From that night onwards, in the weapon forging room, Su Yu began to forge weapons. The knowledge and experience that the 100-path pavilion had absorbed were all used by Su Yu. In reality, weapon forging was a little more difficult. In the 100-path pavilion, the ratio of materials would usually be prepared for you, and the shapes were uniform, but in reality, many materials needed to be extracted from the rough embryo. After spending a full 2 days, Su Yu, who was already able to forge a mid-grade profound-grade weapon in the 100-path pavilion, only managed to forge his first profound-grade weapon in reality. A low-grade weapon. All the way until the morning of the 1st of the 5th month, Su Yu walked out of the weapon forging room. On the 4th floor, there were also people who were busy. Seeing Su Yu walk out of the weapon forging room, Wen Zhong was a little surprised. He smiled and said, "How's junior brother's injury? If you're not going to treat your injuries, why did you go to the weapon forging room?" Su Yu smiled and said, "He's been in seclusion for a long time, so he's a little depressed. Come out and try the weapon forging room to relieve the pressure." After saying that, he asked, "Senior brother Wen, how's the God converging technique?" Wen Zhong was a little helpless. "It's too difficult. We can use your Chuangwu God converging technique as an analogy, but we lack a large amount of experimental data and materials. It's still easier to simulate the essence aperture, but the God aperture is too difficult. Moreover, there aren't many God apertures. At the current stage, there are only about 100 God apertures. There were 72 God apertures in the book of 10,000 words. Some of the invincible states had their own basic script, so they could open up to 36 God apertures at most. Therefore, at this stage, the number of God apertures that could be opened the most was only 108, and they still had to not overlap. As for Su Yu, he had actually passed down many cultivation techniques to quite a number of people. Chen Yong and Wuxia knew 4 sets, while Xia Huyo and Zhang Hao knew 3 sets. However, they had only been in contact with each other for a short period of time, so they could not open so many God apertures without great opportunities. Su Yu nodded. This was indeed troublesome. They did not have enough experimental materials. And to put it bluntly, because there were many warriors were actually not very valuable. On the death row side, most of them were warriors. At most, they could find a few death row prisoners to try out the cultivation technique. There were really not many civilized masters. If you wanted to find someone to test it out, it was often difficult to find a civilized master to be your tool. Su Yu had no choice but to say, "Then senior brother, you guys study it first. I don't have time to do this recently. When my injuries are healed, I will try to extract the blood essence and see if I can find some common points. Okay, you can rest in peace and recover." Wen Zhong said this, but he was speechless in his heart. He looked at Su Yu strangely. "Why do I feel that you are stronger than before? Are you sure you are recovering from your injuries?" It had been more than a month since the competition. This was probably the longest period of time that Su Yu had spent in seclusion. Su Yu exchanged a few pleasantries with Wen Zhong. He thought for a moment and asked, "Senior Wen, has Senior Hu Qi come out of seclusion?" "There's no news yet." Su Yu nodded. He had not come out of seclusion yet. Hu Qi had entered seclusion this time only to awaken his mind. Su Yu had also given him a lot of Heaven Yuan Qi. Could it be that he had not successfully awakened it? Forget it, there was no rush for the time being. The extraction of Heavenly Yuan Qi was successful. He had also actually forged a black-grade literary soldier. As for the divine script, he did not idle around when he was exploring the 100 Dao Pavilion and extracting Heavenly Yuan Qi. He had also read some of the invincible manuscripts. In the Great Han King's manuscripts, Su Yu sketched out the word strength. In the Great Yuan King's manuscripts, Su Yu sketched out the word battle. Clearly, the core of the Great Yuan King's battle tactics was probably battle-based. That day, he had also obtained a copy of the Great Zhou King's manuscript. Su Yu had also read it a few times before finally sketching out a supplementary divine text, the divine text with the word silence. It allowed him to maintain his calm and allowed the enemy to maintain their silence. Su Yu experienced it for a moment. In fact, it was relatively more terrifying. This kind of characteristic allowed the enemy to easily calm down even if they were in danger. They would ignore that sense of danger and lose that feeling of sudden inspiration. This thing was absolutely useful for ambushing the enemy. Ambushing usually made the opponent somewhat aware and vigilant. However, using this quiet character divine text could greatly block this feeling. If one's senses were not sharp, they might even completely ignore the danger. The Do character divine text and the Quiet character divine text were both drawn from invincible manuscripts. They were directly Tier 2 divine texts. In addition, Su Yu also drew a Change character divine text. This was also drawn from some cultivation technique books introduced by Su Bin. In fact, what Su Bin drew was not the human divine text, but the demon divine text. Su Yu found a human translation. In the end, he drew the human divine text. The human divine text was currently not as powerful as the god and demon divine text, but it was much easier to write when translated into the language of the human will. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1381. 1381 Chapter 321 Yang Aperture, 2. In a month, Suyu had only sketched out 3 divine inscriptions. At this point, he had already sketched out 21 divine inscriptions. However, the changed divine inscription was still very weak. It was only at the first stage, and it would take quite some time for him to advance to the second stage. The spatial divine inscription that Suyu had been dreaming of failed once again. This made Suyu extremely regretful. That was the true life-saving divine text. Unfortunately, he tried to observe some cultivation techniques, but all of them failed. The humans did not have a deep understanding of this aspect, and there were not many corresponding cultivation techniques. Hu Xianqing's space divine text was also not from the humans. Since Hu Qi had not come out of seclusion, Suyu was not in a hurry to leave. In addition, the change character was too weak, so he had to think of a way to improve. The best way to improve was naturally to shatter a sun and moon divine text and directly absorb the aftershocks of the divine text. That speed was extremely fast. It was just too wasteful. Almost all of the sun and moon divine texts could turn into secret realms. If they were already peeled off, then shattering the divine texts to absorb the remnants was a foolish and idiotic method. The sun and moon divine texts were also the strongest divine texts that the human race could sketch out. Last time, after killing 5 sun and moon divine texts, Suyu's side had peeled off a total of 3 sun and moon divine texts. They were all kept in the divine runes room. The 3 divine runes were the Qi of the Celestials, which had the effect of observing Qi. Under normal circumstances, they were used to spy on and probe. They did not use willpower to probe, but to observe Qi to judge the strength of the opponent, which would not attract the attention of others. Auxiliary divine runes were also not suitable for creating secret realms. Creating a secret realm also depended on whether the divine runes were suitable or not. Their characteristics were not suitable for use as secret realms. Creating them would be a waste of money. This divine runes was not suitable for being used as a secret realm. The other 2 were also divine runes of the celestial race, the sword divine runes that were in charge of battles, and the broken divine runes that were the main battle divine runes of the demon race. After Su Yu and Wen Zhong finished their small talk, they walked into the divine runes room and looked at the 3 sealed divine runes. After thinking for a long time, he took out the Qi divine runes. Now that he was slowly nurturing the divine runes, he could not wait any longer. He might as well destroy the Qi divine runes and upgrade his change divine runes. It would be best if he could upgrade it to level 3. If not, he could even upgrade it to level 2. With the help of the level 3 divine runes. In addition, he also knew the breathing technique of the rotary turtle tribe. Even the sun and moon might not be able to see through his identity. Just 1 divine runes, level 3, was enough for Ling Yun to not be able to see through his identity. With the change divine runes and the breathing technique, there was no way that the mountains and seas would be able to discover his identity. As for sun and moon, Suyu couldn't say for sure at the moment. He needed to give it a try. Breaking the sun and moon divine script to cultivate and cultivating a level 1 divine script. If outsiders found out, they would probably curse Suyu to death. He was a madman. Of course, it wasn't Suyu's first time killing the sun and moon to cultivate. Even though he didn't kill them, he had cultivated many times when the sun and moon died. The effects were quite good. This time, he was alone, preparing to shatter a sun and moon divine text to cultivate. It should be able to improve the divine text by a lot. The master was already dead, and before the other party died, this divine text had probably just entered the sun and moon realm, so it was not that difficult to shatter it. Suyu made up his mind and did not hesitate. He directly shattered this Qi word divine text. In the next moment, a powerful remnant of the divine text spread throughout the small divine text room. Divine text masters had a special structure, so the remnant of the divine text did not spread out. Suyu did not want others to know that he had gone crazy. He shattered the Sun-Moon divine runes to cultivate Yueshin Island. When Suyu shattered the Sun-Moon divine runes, Niu Baidao turned his head to glance at the Primordial Spirit Research Institute. After staring at it for a while, he muttered, "This guy, could it be that he broke the Sun-Moon divine runes?" That fleeting and extremely faint feeling made him faintly sense it. He couldn't believe it. It wasn't that bad, right? Or was it that he accidentally shattered the Sun-Moon divine text during the experiment? He shook his head. There was a high probability that he accidentally shattered it. Otherwise, Suyu would have gone crazy. If he didn't go crazy and break the Sun-Moon divine text, then what else could he be? However, the Sun-Moon divine text was very sturdy. Even if its master died, it would still be very difficult to break it. What experiment did Suyu do? Could it be that he was preparing to create a secret realm and accidentally made a mistake and broke the divine text? That was possible. On May 3rd, Suyu walked out of the divine text room. This time, each person enjoyed a single piece of the Sun-Moon divine text. When he came out, Suyu had a smile on his face. He had gained quite a lot. The change word divine text, after absorbing all the aftershocks of a single piece of the Sun-Moon divine text, just barely managed to enter Tier 3. As for his physical body, after these few days of tempering and constantly absorbing the Heaven Yuan Qi, Suyu felt that he would be able to cast 8 soon. It had been 8 days since the 7 casting. With sufficient Heaven Yuan Qi, Suyu would probably only need half a month at most. He should be able to complete the casting once. There were 21 divine runes, and the change and Yin were all at the 3rd level. Suyu had also easily learned the breath-concealing technique of the rotary turtle tribe. His physical body was about to be cast 8 times. As for the literary weapon, Suyu had now replaced it with the black-grade literary weapon that he had forged himself. Instead of forging a saber, he had forged a hammer-shaped one. As a weapon forging master, it was reasonable for him to use such a literary weapon. Of course, the black-grade literary weapon that he had forged gave Suyu the feeling that it was not much stronger than the top yellow-grade literary weapon that he had used previously. It was almost the same feeling. As expected, the 36 gold-grade literary weapons that teacher Zhao Li had forged were still formidable. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1382. 1382 Chapter 321 Yang Aperture, 3. At this point, almost everything was ready. The only thing left was the transformation of the identity and the induction jade. Regarding the identity, he still had to look for Niu Baidao. It was fine if he didn't look for him, but it was also fine if he looked for Su Bin. This guy was the president of the Chamber of Commerce. He was dirty and unscrupulous, and there were all kinds of people in the Chamber of Commerce. However, if he was asked to arrange an identity for him, unless this guy was locked up. Otherwise, he would have to prevent him from revealing any information to the outside world. Suyu had a very fulfilling life. He was busy preparing for his trip. He waited for another 2 days at the Research Institute. On May 5th, all 144 of Suyu's self-detonated elemental apertures had recovered. And only 40 days had passed since he was injured. In 40 days, Suyu had repaired all his apertures at an astonishing speed. And when he had repaired his apertures, Suyu was no longer in a hurry to look for Niu Baidao. In the cultivation room, Suyu was a little excited. Young apertures, yes, all of his apertures had been restored. He could now try his young apertures. The last time he self-detonated his apertures, he actually had the intention of testing it on Dan Xiong. Just like Bai Feng, he could not bear to self-detonate for no reason. Bai Feng had self-detonated the divine inscriptions when he was looking for Xia Yuan to test it on. He had almost killed Xia Yuan, and the self-detonation of the divine text was also something that Bai Feng had planned for a long time ago. Suyu was the same. He could not bear to self-detonate his essence aperture for no reason. But against Dan Xiong, he could make use of it as a waste. Yang aperture. Su Yu took a deep breath, and one acupuncture point after another began to light up. The 360 acupuncture points were split again. On the surface of his body, the 360 acupuncture points all appeared, mapping Su Yu into a figure of light. At this moment, Su Yu was constantly devouring large amounts of yuan qi liquid, activating the energy in each acupuncture point. Soon, all the acupuncture points were lit up, forming a large cycle. And this cycle was already very complete. According to this situation, an additional acupuncture point might not necessarily be connected. But Su Yu knew that the yang acupuncture point might not necessarily be connected, activating the energy in the acupuncture points again. At this moment, Su Yu concentrated all the energy of the 360 yuan aperture into one point, where he had discovered the last time. Gradually, the spot where Su Yu's middle courtyard was located was not on the surface, but in the place where his internal organs were suspended in the air. A light spot gradually appeared. The middle courtyard, the spot directly above the navel, was also on the central axis. This light spot that flickered was not on the surface of the body, but deep inside the body. The position of the cavity was not attached to any flesh and blood. The shimmering dot of light caused the power of the 360 apertures to rush into this shimmering dot of light. Su Yu hurriedly stopped. That young aperture actually took the initiative to absorb the power of his apertures. It was like a bottomless pit. The thread of energy that exploded out was also extremely violent. Young aperture, the energy is too violent. Back then, Bai Tianhao should have also discovered it. In the end, the power of several hundred yuan apertures surged in and exploded out with incomparable power. However, because his physical body was not strong enough, the young aperture's power was too strong in the end and exploded. Su Yu had some understanding now. After waiting for a while, he sent in yuan aperture energies again. The young aperture opened wider and wider. The speed at which it absorbed energy also became faster and faster. The 360 yuan aperture's yuan qi was somewhat stretched out. Su Yu continued to devour yuan qi liquid again. Large amounts of yuan qi liquid were rapidly consumed by him and converted into yuan qi. At that moment, the young aperture's burst of energy was also becoming more and more violent and powerful. Gradually, Su Yu's internal organs could no longer withstand it. He did not continue and hurriedly used his willpower to seal the other yuan apertures. Suddenly, with a low roar, he threw a punch. This punch was extremely violent. Boom! The entire secret chamber began to tremble violently. With a bang, the wall in front of the secret chamber was shattered. One had to know that this secret chamber had been strengthened, and it was protected by a formation. However, at this moment, it was still shattered by Su Yu's punch. Cracks appeared on Su Yu's fist, and blood dripped down. His internal organs had also suffered some injuries. Su Yu frowned. This was too brutal. However, the strength that surged into his young aperture and exploded out was really quite strong. The current Su Yu had cast his body 7 times, and his physical strength had been fully unleashed, with a strength of over 3,500 aperture points. He did not use his full strength just now, nor did his physical strength burst forth. He only had the strength of his yuan aperture surging in, with a strength of 360 yuan aperture points. After closing his aperture, the strength burst forth was 1,800 aperture points. When the strength of his yuan aperture was concentrated in his yang aperture, the strength that burst forth from his yang aperture exceeded 2,000 aperture points. This was something that Su Yu did not dare to continue to burst forth after absorbing all the yuan qi. Furthermore, the yuan qi that exploded was more violent and destructive. If I really absorb all the strength, or even shatter the other apertures and completely open the yang aperture, perhaps I can really cross realms to fight. Su Yu was somewhat shocked. This yang aperture could not be opened rashly. Once this thing was opened, it was somewhat irreversible. If he absorbed too much yuan qi, it would be too violent. He might blow himself up first and play himself to death. Yin-yang harmony. Su Yu muttered. He needed yin-yang harmony. Otherwise, opening the yang aperture would hurt others and himself. There should be another way. Opening the yin aperture might be able to neutralize that brutal force. Unfortunately, I can't open the yin aperture at all. In Su Yu's opinion, the yuan aperture and the divine aperture were two sides of yin and yang. The crux was that the two sides of yin and yang were not symmetrical. One was in the body, and the other was in the sea of will. Who knew where the yin aperture was? At that moment, he had a vague idea that the essence soul aperture really had two apertures. Only when they were combined would the essence soul aperture truly be formed. In the past, Bai Tianhao should have opened the yang aperture. However, the yang aperture absorbed a large amount of yuan qi, and the explosive power was extremely powerful and brutal. In the end, Bai Tianhao killed a mountain and sea expert, and his own body was blasted apart by the explosive power, or all of his essence apertures were shattered. This resulted in his own death. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories. Chapter 1383. 1383 Chapter 321, Yang Aperture, 4. Bai Tianhao's physical body was not strong enough, and his internal organs were not strong enough. His yang aperture should have self-detonated in the end, and even his sea of consciousness had exploded. He picked up the book from the Bai family again and continued reading. He murmured, someone from the Bai family should have tried it. First, they broke through the aperture and found the location of the yang aperture. After that, the yang aperture absorbed a large amount of energy. It might have absorbed some of the energy from the yang aperture, or it might have simply sucked the other party to death. If he didn't die, the other party's yang aperture was too large and couldn't be closed or neutralized. Then, he would have to continuously absorb the energy of his yang aperture. In other words, this person would have to constantly resist the absorption of the energy of his yang aperture. At this moment, he thought of Bai Feng's grandfather. The mountain and sea that he had been in seclusion for many years. Was he in seclusion, or had his yang aperture been opened? However, his yang aperture was too large and couldn't be closed. As a result, he had no choice but to go into seclusion and use up his energy to resist the absorption of the yang aperture. Su Yu grimaced. If he was right, then Bai Feng's grandfather would probably have been sucked to death by his yang aperture. No, if his yang aperture had been absorbing energy for so many years, then the other party's yang aperture might have exploded. If it had exploded and absorbed the energy of a mountain and sea cultivator for so many years, then the explosive force, if Bai Feng's grandfather was as he had guessed, now, it was possible for him to blow up a sun and moon. Of course, he would be dead for sure. Unless I open the yin aperture to neutralize him. Unfortunately, even I can't open the yin aperture, let alone him. Thinking of this, Su Yu shook his head helplessly. Was it Bai Feng's grandfather? Had he made himself into a superhuman bomb? Had he opened a yang aperture that absorbed too much energy, but was unable to close it? As for Su Yu, he had only tasted it and opened it slightly. He had not discovered the yin aperture yet. If he really opened the yang aperture would automatically absorb the energy from the yuan aperture. Even if he opened 360 apertures, it would not be enough for the yang aperture to absorb. This thing had to be neutralized by the yin aperture. Su Yu touched his chin. Not to mention, opening the yang aperture and absorbing all the energy from the yuan aperture, this had the concept of the mountain and sea unity aperture. Of course, compared to the mountain and sea unity aperture, one aperture at a time, the yang aperture directly gathered all the energy into one. What did this mean? It meant that if you really opened it, you would be equivalent to the sun and moon. You would only have the power of one aperture. Of course, this was slightly different from the sun and moon. The sun and moon only had one aperture, and the yang aperture was not included. As for the specific difference, Suyu was still a little confused at the moment. He would probably have to experience it before he could understand the difference between the two. The sun and moon are also one aperture. The yang aperture absorbs the energy of all the apertures, so it can be considered as one aperture. Is it useful for a sun and moon realm to open the yang aperture? Suyu was puzzled, but he had no way to test it out. He did not dare to open all of his yang apertures rashly. Once he opened all of them, there was no need to do anything else. He would cultivate all day long to resist the absorption power of the yang aperture. Although I can't open all of them, it's still possible to open them slightly. The strength of my body is at least 10% stronger. It's equivalent to casting another body. The brutal Yuan Qi might be equivalent to casting another body twice. Suyu was still amazed. If he activated it slightly, his strength would be 20% stronger. If he activated it fully, his strength would be doubled, right? Once his strength was doubled, his strength wouldn't be as simple as 1 versus 2. Bai Tianhao was an example. Ling Yun had killed mountains and seas. I have another trump card. Even though he didn't fully activate it, Suyu was still very excited. If his physical body could withstand the mountain and sea essence blood, devour the mountain and sea essence blood, explode, and then open his yang aperture to gather all his strength, then he would be even stronger on this foundation. Along with his willpower and all sorts of messy methods. In the end, he would probably not be weaker than a normal mountain and sea. Ling Yun's 9 transformations. An ordinary warrior at the mountain and sea realm would probably have the strength of 10,000 apertures. 10,000 apertures was the beginning of a mountain and sea realm according to Suyu's calculations. Those who had opened 72 apertures would have the hope of reaching the strength of 10,000 apertures in the mountain and sea realm. The 9 transformations of Yuan Qi would increase one's strength even more than casting a body. The strength of 10,000 apertures was the basic point for a warrior to reach the mountain and sea realm. Of course, such a mountain and sea realm was very weak. My body is now 7 times stronger, and the explosive strength I can withstand is about 4,000 apertures. I really want to devour some of the blood essence of the weak mountain and sea realm. At the very least, I need to reach the strength of 18 apertures. If he wanted to devour the blood essence, he would still need to unleash the power of mountains and seas. Without a body cast for 18 times, it would be difficult for him to withstand such explosive power, and the damage to Suyu would be too great. 18 times, I can almost unleash the power of 10,000 apertures myself, maybe 16 times will do. If he cast 16 times, then he would be at the peak of the second level of the soaring heaven realm. If he devoured the blood essence of mountains and seas and unleashed the power of 10,000 apertures, coupled with his yang apertures, then Suyu would be able to truly fight against some of the weaker mountains and seas. As he was thinking, someone cursed downstairs, "Why are you still not stopping? Your house is broken." Suyu looked outside and saw that the wall had been penetrated. Below, Wu Lan was glaring at him angrily. Suyu could not help but laugh. "Sorry, my injuries are acting up. It was caused by my Yuan Qi rampage." Seeing that his face was pale and his fist was still bleeding, Wu Lan hurriedly asked, "Are you all right?" "I'm fine. Should I call for help?" "There's no need." Suyu replied a few times and looked at the broken wall. He was helpless. This secret chamber was not strong at all. Next time, it would be better to build a stronger secret chamber. Before, he did not use too much strength, but it was broken. In the next few days, Suyu tried to open his yang aperture on a small scale several times and gradually found some patterns.